Hello, hello.
There we go.
Oh, okay, there we go. All
Dude, I'm
right.
so illiterate with this stuff. The first thing I did was click the disconnect button, thinking it was I accidentally had my thing muted or something.
Yeah, Discord kind of has a slight learning curve, but once you get
Yeah,
it, once you get
yeah.
it.
Like the first time I was in a voice channel with one of my friends, it was embarrassing. I could not figure out how to disconnect at all. He had to walk me through it like a grandparent. But
Yeah.
so yeah,
Uh,
so my name's Chase, by the way,
Chase,
just so you can
okay.
refer to me as an actual name. Is your name Mark? I'm assuming.
Yes.
Mark. All right.
I'm
Well,
just
shit.
gonna set something up really quick,
Yep, that's fine.
so that you can see what I'm looking at when I pull up some research.
Guess let me put this over.
So I forgot that I had to change over all of my stuff. So I gotta re-download Virtual Cam. Hopefully this doesn't make me. If it makes me restart OBS and all that, I'm not gonna fucking deal with it.
Yeah, it's too much.
Yeah.
Oh man. So you end up having to take your kid to the doctor?
Yeah, it's just a checkup.
Okay.
He's a year old now, so
Oh yeah, I think I saw him on the stream.
yeah. So he's it's just a basic checkup for how he's coming along and everything.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Yeah, I
Add
wasn't sure
virtual
if there was
cam.
something going on or something.
Add a virtual cam filter to the scenes. What? Oh, tools virtual cam.
Excuse me. Dang, I've already been streaming for an hour. Holy cow.
Yeah, it's not gonna work. So screw it. I'll just
That's all right.
stream my screen, and when I want you to check it out, I'll let you know.
Well, what kind of things are you talking? You just talking about like references basically to
Yeah,
just like some information? Okay. I mean,
yeah. You can ignore it right now because
okay.
it's just gonna recreate what's on the screen right now. But
Okay.
yeah,
So
yeah.
just like
So
double everything.
yeah, the plan is to talk about Medicare for all, figure out what your
Hmm.
issues are with it, and see if I can answer some of those questions. Um, Kind of figure out what the branching path is for conservatives
Yeah.
who would
Well,
benefit
quite
greatly
honestly,
from it.
huh?
Who would benefit greatly from it.
Well, basically, so my position is that I don't believe general healthcare is a human right. I don't think it's outlined in like I don't think it's part of like our constitution at all. I know you don't like our constitution, but our constitution is what I go off of in terms of what I consider to be our naturally given rights. Um, I
What
do think
about
to a
life,
degree it
liberty, and
obviously
the
is.
pursuit of happiness?
That's exactly what I was about to say. I do
Hmm.
think there is a degree. I think you do have a right to life. So obviously life-saving operations, things like that. I do believe you are born with that right. But but overall, general healthcare in general, all the other things that go along with it, I don't think it's a right. I think it's a great privilege that we have because like I've said before, we live in the most advanced medical system in all of human history. That we have so many people alive today that just 100 years ago would not have made it through due to how advanced we are now. And I think that's all great privilege, but I do believe that should still be private and not not publicly funded, and also not we should not be compelled, by law to pay for everyone else's health care, through taxes. That's basically the gist of my position on that.
Okay. Even if the benefits outweigh the negatives.
I mean, what do you mean by that?
Well,
Because
if
that's a
it's
lot.
better if it's better for the citizens of the United States of America that we do pay it that way. I mean, there's a number of things that we pay for that are actually not beneficial and actually are huge negatives for the citizenry, such as you
Talking about,
subsidizing oil, so that they can
yeah,
pump out more fumes. Often these factories are, you know, that manufacture oil and oil products are based in minority communities, poor communities, which have detrimental health effects, which increases the amount of times that they go to the hospital for uh, life-saving issues, and they also don't go to normal checkups to make sure that they're still healthy, regardless to how they take care of themselves. They're poor, and they live in a terrible area. They
okay.
can succumb to the negative effects of such pollution, and we're basically just neglecting the largest swath of Americans, all because you don't want to pay slightly more in taxes while paying way less in than what you're paying for healthcare currently.
Well, the thing is, right now, I am hardly paying anything for my healthcare. Like I said in your stream the other day, I only pay a few bucks out of each paycheck for it. It's pretty
Lucky
minimal
you.
coverage, but huh?
Lucky you.
I'm not lucky. I
Mm-hmm.
chose the job that I work at. It's not luck. I
No,
made the decision.
jobs choose you. First of all, you don't choose the job.
Well, explain that because that doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, you apply for a job. Does that mean you have it?
No.
They have to choose you. You don't choose the
Okay.
job. Jobs choose you.
But I can choose to apply. I can make the decision what jobs I apply to. I could apply to 10 different jobs, be
Sure,
accepted for
but
all 10 of them, and then make the decision after that.
you always apply at the place that's most likely hiring at a rate that you feel like you can actually qualify for. And most of the time, that job is bare minimum for the majority of people.
Yeah, sure, majority, but that doesn't necessarily always mean it's the case. I mean, I don't pick a place that's just going to accept me or I think is gonna pay well. I choose places based on what I'm is going to pay well, but also what I think I'm going to do well in and be happy at, so to speak. Not some basically not be miserable at.
I'm gonna guess you probably have some sort of trade or a college degree.
Nope.
No, okay. What what do you do?
I'm a FedEx driver. FedEx
FedEx
Ground.
driver?
Yeah, I'm the guy that
Ah, okay.
runs the package up to your house and throws it at your door.
That's a good union job,
The union job?
isn't it? Isn't FedEx unionized? Oh, UPS is using unionized.
Probably. I was gonna say because the thing is, I technically work for FedEx Corporation,
Mm.
but the way Ground works is they hire contractors. So I work for a business in my area that's contracted by FedEx to deliver the packages. So like I do work for FedEx, but I don't actually work for FedEx. They don't write my paychecks,
Okay.
basically.
Okay. So
I didn't know that before
like a
working with.
shipping subsidiary.
Yeah, yeah. Like I work for a company, yeah, that's based out of like some town 20 miles from here. That
Gotcha.
we've got like 30 employees or something like that.
Okay. I
But
understand. Understand.
but yeah, again, like I said, main point is just that I chose the job that I work at, and I like this job. So I've been working here for a little over a year. I like the environment. I like the work. Because I get paid per delivery. I don't get paid by the hour, or I don't get a salary or anything like that. And I actually like that style of payment because the amount of money I make per hour is directly reflected by how hard I work. And again, like I said, in terms of uh, benefits, I
Mm-hmm.
like that they have a pretty minimal coverage plan. Again, like I said, it's minimal. It's not like it's going to cover some life-saving operation if something pops up out of nowhere. But I
Which
am a low
it
risk
does.
person. Hmm?
Which it can very very often.
It can. It can happen. But again, my point is that I'm extremely low risk because of my lifestyle overall. And because of that, I like paying accordingly the low amount. I don't I think I already pay enough in taxes, and we can have a whole conversation about how horribly our taxes are spent. I'm sure we agree on that a lot.
Oh yeah.
Um, we could definitely cut the budget in a lot of places and spend it elsewhere. But even so, if we're going to be doing that, you can also just reduce my taxes more because I like to have all the money that I make and spend it accordingly.
Oh, wait till I tell you about progressive tax systems.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I mean, we can get into that probably another time because that's a whole different conversation. Just so I have more of an idea of how to talk to you about this, because everything is set up in a lot of ways by state. What state do you live in?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to pry too much about you.
No, I'm in North Carolina. I don't care.
North
I'm not
Carolina.
gonna dox myself, but yeah, I live in North Carolina.
Okay, let me just remind myself of something real quick.
Go ahead, because I don't know much about. I've only been living here for about a year. I was in Florida my entire life, and so I'm getting hit for the first time with state income tax, which I did not know was a thing. I mean, I knew it was a thing, but I didn't know how much it actually was going to take out of my paycheck because I lived in Florida my whole life.
Yeah, it's a thing that exists, but I mean, it's honestly not that bad. Like I never worry about how much taxes I'm paying out of every paycheck, um, because like at least I'm contributing to society.
Yeah,
Let's see
and I mean,
here.
I hate seeing all the money that comes out of my. I'm fine with taxes to a degree. I'm not some. I mean, I do like to say taxation is theft. I have, it's like I've got my ideal political viewpoint, and then I've got my realistic one because I
Hmm.
understand I live with people that aren't the same as me. But even so, it's like I get taxed a lot,
Yeah,
and the reason I've realized is because Florida has so much tourism, they don't need income tax, and it makes sense because nobody goes to North Carolina for anything, so they got to take all my money.
I mean, more or less. People come to North Carolina and South Carolina because it's a vacation spot. It's in the South. It's got the
Yeah,
coast. You know,
I'm not
so
saying no
it's
one
not.
comes here.
Yeah, but yeah, I just wanted to make sure so they don't participate in the Medicaid expansion through the ACA. It's good to know.
North Carolina state.
Hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I wanted to make sure of. For one thing, have a good idea of where everything stands there. So
Hmm.
now I know a little bit more about how to talk to you about this. Okay, so let's talk about the benefits of expanding healthcare to basically be socialized in payment. By the way, oh, really quick, Bebe, thank you for the 44 months. My wife resubbed to me.
Nice.
Okay. So where do you think we stand on life expectancy in this country in comparison to other industrialized countries?
Do you mean like? Are you asking if I think it's longer or shorter than others?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, depending on the nation. Are you talking just first world nations?
Mm-hmm.
I would expect ours is going to be slightly lower than average because we're a very unhealthy country.
We are dead
If I had to
last.
guess. Dead last?
Dead last. We have a
That's
very
pretty
low
good.
life expectancy, and it actually dropped more on during COVID.
That's not surprising. So, what is the reason for that then?
Well, there's a number of reasons, but for one thing, 1 in 4 Americans are skipping medical care because they can't afford it.
Okay. And so, the solution, do you think, is just completely socialized healthcare?
Mm-hmm. Make it accessible. Give them, take away the financial barrier and allow them to actually take care of themselves. Because the thing that I don't think you quite understand about medical issues, and it's because of how this country views medical issues as, like you said, a um,
Privilege?
a privilege. Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
Um, it like God, it's such a broken brain view of things. You need to take care of yourself. You need to get regular checkups. It doesn't matter how healthy you eat, how much you exercise, how if you don't live under certain power lines or anything like that, it doesn't matter at all. You can still have something. And if you're not getting regularly checked up, that thing can get way worse. Or
Yeah.
in the case of most Americans, what happens is things start going bad, and it's not bad enough to where they feel like they can afford to do anything about it, so they avoid the hospital completely. And those symptoms can actually be emblematic of a larger condition that could have been either taken care of if caught early, or prevented entirely, um, you know, before it becomes a life threatening issue.
Okay.
Like,
So but the thing is though is like my issue with that is you keep saying the issue is cost,
it is
but
cost.
and
Yes.
I know that's what I'm saying. You're saying the issue's cost, and I understand that you know poverty and just honestly the general wage gap in this country is huge and it's getting worse daily.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is there are factors, obviously. I talk about fate. There's always that aspect of things that are completely out of your control, but for the most part things are within your control. So if finances are the issue, then you have to just figure out how to get around that issue. Because for me, it's not, finances aren't part of the issue. I mean, I don't make a ton of money. I don't even make six figures, but it's not an issue because I know how to budget it accordingly and I know how to work within the system. Plus,
Could you
excuse
take
me,
a $5,000 bill out of nowhere?
huh?
Could you
Just pay for
handle a
5,000 right now?
yeah?
Not up front, but I could over time. That's what I did when I went to the hospital a few years ago. I think it was about a $5,000 or $6,000 bill, and I paid it off with a payment plan.
Are you married?
No, I'm not married. Not yet. We're gonna be getting
Kids?
married soon. Hmm.
Kids?
Not yet. No.
Okay. Your healthcare is going to go up.
And
Just letting you know. Be ready for that. Your healthcare is going to go
I
up. You're going to start seeing more of the crunch that other people have to deal with. And the thing
I
is,
understand
you
that.
again are one of the quote unquote lucky ones, but also very unlucky because you don't actually have any real sort of coverage. Because when it's not going to be if, when you need to go to the hospital again, you're going to be screwed. And the thing
I
that
will,
the people don't understand about if you go to the emergency room is they only stabilize you if you don't have insurance. Once you're stable, the rest is, quote, up to you. So if you
what do you
have
mean by
something that's going to,
stabilize? Like if I'm in, do you mean by stabilize? If I'm like in there for like an immediate like emergency, like I'm about to die type of thing?
yeah,
Is that what you mean by
they get
stabilize?
it to where you can go home and live. But if you're still, you're not going to die right away, but you still have whatever condition, or you're still recovering from whatever condition you have. And often a lot of conditions that hit you into the emergency room require some forms of rehab and constant maintenance. And
Yeah.
if you don't have any money to do that, well, you're just fucked. You can't do that because you were able to pay that $5,000 bill when you went to the hospital one time. But did you do any further checks? Could you afford to pay for, I don't know,
Yeah, I did a follow up.
prescriptions?
I didn't need any prescriptions for anything.
Lucky you.
The thing is like, so the point you're making right now is just that like shit. So you said you have ADHD, right? I've seen that before.
Mm-hmm.
I do too, hard.
Mm-hmm. Are
That'll
you
probably
taking
be
care of
the
it at all?
no. I took
Bingo.
medication for it like eighth and ninth grade, but I didn't like it. Um, I just don't feel the need to take medication for it. It's just the way my brain works. My point though is that I'm gonna get sidetracked and I'm gonna forget things immediately
Mm-hmm.
when we're talking about things. So the point you're making right now is just that it will get more expensive for me, which I understand, especially when I have kids. It's going to get more expensive for me, and that a hospital will do what it can to keep me alive, but not much after that, right? Not to keep me actual healthy.
Mm-hmm. And nor will you be able to maintain your health afterwards
Well,
unless you upgrade
that's
your
the
your
thing.
health plan, which
I
you're
will be
probably
able to
going
maintain
to,
myself.
and that's going to cost you more money. Like for
Yeah,
example,
that's
do you know how much I pay for per month for my health insurance, for which we have to have the top of the line health insurance because we go to the doctor a lot. I have a lot of conditions. My wife has a
mhm,
lot of conditions, and we have a 1 year old.
yeah.
$700 a month just for insurance, and that doesn't include copays. Doesn't include what our deductibles don't cover. Which is this is all shit built into the healthcare system. There's
Hmm.
nothing cooler than needing a regular scope in order to make sure that you don't have cancer in your throat that could easily, if caught early, can be prevented from becoming a bigger problem. Like, throat cancer is things that like you die from easily.
Quick. Yeah.
Yes, I need to kind of keep an eye on that. I I They found a polyp in a weird part of my stomach last year, the last time I got my scope, and they wanted me to get it yearly. But I can't because I owe them $900 because I could not meet my deductible. Now this
Why
is
haven't
$900 on top of the other bills that I owe
So what's
because I've lived
preventing
in
you from
poverty.
paying them off then?
Having money, making that money, other
So
debts,
what's preventing you though from making more money
being able to find a job in an area of high poverty.
in an area of high poverty?
Mm-hmm.
You live in Flint, you said?
Mm-hmm. Poorest city in the country.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know what your point is. Because I understand that your healthcare costs a lot of money because you're covering three people with a lot of medical issues. I think that makes perfect sense.
Should I just die?
I don't think you should die, but you can
But
fight
I'm
to
going to.
live. Well, we're all gonna die at some point, but you can fight to live instead
What
of
do you think I'm doing?
demanding.
Do you think that I'm not doing that?
Well, I know you're fighting it. There's multiple ways to fight it, but my point is that the fight isn't to demand that it's just paid for. And I understand why you want to if you have all these medical issues. I understand that. But the thing is that you're asking everyone else to foot the bill.
Mm-hmm. Because already everybody already foots the bill, and that
Yeah,
bill is way more expensive,
our
and
healthcare
it
is
can
already
actually be
socialized
cheaper.
enough.
It's not
It could be
socialized at
cheaper.
all. it's,
It could be cheaper if everyone paid all their hospital bills off. That's a huge issue
that's
that we have right now.
kinda. No, not really, but in a way, kinda. Do you know what the largest cost for healthcare providers is?
Overhead.
Yes. Why do you think that is?
Not entirely sure. Costs a lot of money to run a business.
No. Has nothing to do with costs a lot of money to run a business. There are many jobs. There are many employers that don't have their highest costs be overhead. It can be like stock. It can be various other things. You would think that the highest amount of money would be spent on care or instruments for care or replacing supplies needed for care. Right. That makes more sense. Right.
I mean, sort of.
Yeah. So the biggest reason why our overhead is a provider's largest cost is because of literally our for-profit insurance industry.
Okay, hold on. Say it again and elaborate a little more.
It's because of our for-profit insurance industry.
Say the whole statement again. I forgot the first part.
So what I was saying was you would think that the highest cost would be in providing the care,
Yes,
instruments
yes.
of care, things like that. Um, what it's overhead because of our insurance industry, because of how they run insurance as a an obstacle uh, to actually receiving health care.
How is it an obstacle?
Well, let's see here. I'll give you another personal example. I had a knee surgery about 6 years ago, and my insurance company at the time refused to pay for a number of my rehab visits, which were very necessary, because I missed one piece of paper that they sent out, and I've been fighting them for years to get them to pay for it. Now they're supposed to pay for it, but they never have.
Because of a clerical error, basically.
Mm-hmm. And in order to get that paperwork and re-sign it and everything, they have to send me shitloads of more paperwork. See, this is all by design for insurance, by the insurance industry. Because you know what the insurance industry doesn't like to do?
Pay out.
Yes. It's literally the only business model for any product in the history of capitalism that runs off of not providing the product as much as possible in order to maintain profit.
Well, and that is because people are paying a smaller amount than what the product usually is worth.
No,
I mean,
not.
I know you're paying a good amount, but if you take somebody that's paying less, a couple $100 a month versus the thousands of dollars it costs to actually
700.
take these visits and do these operations. I know, I'm not talking about you. I'm just saying in general, people paying hundreds of dollars a month. But the thing is that insurance it's a service. It's like if something goes wrong, then you have insurance that'll help cover it instead of you suddenly having like a $5,000 bill. Like when you have like with car insurance, it's like if you find your car's broken down in a parking lot, it's like you could spend $150 towing it somewhere and then another $500-$600 getting it fixed. But if you have insurance that you pay monthly for, you get that cost greatly reduced. What insurance does
don't
basically
even get me started on auto insurance when I live in the state with the highest insurance rates in the country. So,
well, yeah, again, and I think auto insurance is a scam. I think people should get it, but I think it being legally required is a scam. That someone did a good job with that billing. But my point though is that insurance is it's a service. It helps you, because when I didn't have insurance before and I get caught with emergencies and just things that pop up, like suddenly you're left with $600, $1,000 you're having to pay, you're screwed. But ever since I started getting things that I do insured, like myself, my car, my stuff, blah blah blah, it makes things way better because it doesn't mitigate, but it forces me to put that money into a monthly bill so I can I can plan my finances accordingly, because you can't plan for emergencies, and you can't plan for
you're
any of that
supposed to
kind
be
of
able
crap.
to. According to what this country's always told me and how I was raised, you're supposed to.
Supposed to what? Be ready for emergencies?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, and I mean you are,
And we
but
can't.
again,
and we can't do that. Why? Because
you
everything
say
costs too much, and we don't. Yeah, when I say we, I'm saying the American people as a whole. You're talking a lot about you, and I'm talking a lot about everybody else.
The issue, though, is that
this issue is bigger than everybody, bigger than you.
The issue, though, with what I'm saying when I say we, is you're talking for all of the American public when you're actually not. You're referring to a number of people in the American public. And when I say I'm referring to part of the American public, too, that believes in the individual's liberty and the individual freedom, because that's the whole design of this country is individual freedom. And we are societal, we are collective, but we're not all responsible for each other. I'm not responsible for your health, and you're not responsible for mine.
Why not?
Because I'm not responsible for any decisions you make.
That hasn't anything to do with the decision. I didn't make any decisions to have my stomach shaped the way it is.
I know it's not your decision, but either way, I'm still not responsible.
So then why are you responsible? You said you're not responsible for my decisions. What decisions did I make to end up this way?
You didn't make that decision.
So
I'm not
I don't deserve treatment.
I don't think it's a right. I think it's a great privilege.
Why not?
Unless it's about to kill you.
Explain to me why I'm not allowed to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
You are. You're
but I'm not.
My point.
Because I'm spending so much on healthcare.
Okay. Look, you're not understanding what I say is a right.
I completely understand what you're saying is a right. What you're not understanding is how rights affect human beings. And if you're recognizing that there's a huge disparity in how certain things affect human beings and its provisions as a right in the first place, why it should be a right in the first place, then I don't think you actually are consistent in your definition of what is and isn't a right.
I don't understand what you mean by that because I think I'm pretty consistent. I think you have a
What do
right to
you
things that are
describe
not.
as a right?
A right is something you are born with. It's inalienable. The government does not grant it to you, like your right to say and think anything. Nobody can control that. Nobody can do anything about that. Your right to defend yourself,
Speech
etc.
isn't necessarily something that you're born with. You can't speak when you're born. You can cry.
You can think.
Yeah, you can think, but
That's where the right
there's
comes
no
from.
way to police thought, is there? Not even in those scary authoritarian countries that you call
Minority
communists.
Report movies. No, you
Yeah.
can't police thought, and that's what a
No.
right is. It's something you can't police. It's something you can't make a law on no matter
So
what. You
speech
can't.
doesn't count as a right under your definition.
Yeah, it does. You're I don't know what you're doing, but you're reducing the argument to just
Mm-hmm.
saying, "Oh, since you're born without the ability to speak, then suddenly it's not a right."
What I'm
You're
what I,
born with the ability to speak because you're born with a tongue. Just because you don't know how to speak words yet, you are born with a brain and a tongue and the ability to do so.
That's not necessarily true. There are plenty of people who are born mute. Deaf people often aren't able to speak because they can't learn, because they can't hear. They can't mimic
Okay.
speech.
Okay. And
They have tongues. I mean, fuck them. We shouldn't provide anything for the deaf, or I don't know. You see,
are you even are
here's the issue with your definition. Is it actually doesn't take into account human life and uh, the human existence.
what under what condition does somebody not have an opinion on something?
What do you mean?
Under what condition is someone unable, not born with the ability to have an opinion or discern anything in our reality?
Well, previously in this country's history, we didn't provide any help for the deaf or the mute. We just sent them off to an institution, so they weren't able to voice any sort of opinions. They had no voice at all
Yeah,
until we
and
started providing the means for them to start learning ASL.
that's not what I was asking though. Even in under those circumstances where they got sent off to whatever and weren't provided any sort of resources, they still had brains and were able to discern their own reality and determine what it is
But that was
and have
meaningless, wasn't it?
opinions.
Their
What do you mean it's
opinion was
meaningless?
meaningless because they couldn't voice it.
I don't know. I don't even know what you're trying to prove right now.
That your
You're trying
definition
to
is
prove that
wrong.
there's a very specific instance of people not being able to speak, so therefore you don't have a right to speak?
Under your definition of what a right is, no, you shouldn't be fighting for the right of free speech. Under what your definition is, if it's what you're born with, no.
It's I'm talking about human beings being born with it. I'm not talking about every single person being born with an ability to do whatever. It's about the human race having being born with an ability to do something.
And continue
That's
living,
what we're
correct?
referring to.
Live
Yeah,
freely.
life.
Live freely.
Yes, freely, meaning
Who
the decisions you make.
who
That's
who
what
is
freedom is.
who is free when they live under medical debt for a condition that they were born with and they could not control?
You are, because you're still alive and you have decisions to make
Until
every
you're
single
dead
day,
because of that condition that you couldn't take care of,
and you couldn't take care of it. Why?
because you couldn't afford it,
Why can't you afford it?
because you don't make enough money and the cost of
And why don't
healthcare
you
is
make enough
expensive,
money?
because you don't make enough money, because
Okay,
that's
and
what's
is
offered
that
to you.
is that my decision? Is that my am I responsible for the amount of money you make? Excuse me.
Well, based on how society works, yes.
Oh, really? How am I responsible for the money that you
You're a
make?
voter, right?
No, I mean technically, but no, I don't really vote. Sorry if that completely left you flabbergasted.
Yeah, why would you be interested in politics and not do the bare minimum that you could do to express your voice? Are you at least active in your community?
I mean, I'm about as active as I could be. I've only been here about a year, and I just moved to a new town 3 months ago.
Like, do you go to city hall meetings or anything like that?
No, not yet.
Protest at all?
No,
Do you
because I don't have anything to protest.
do you donate money to any causes or
No, not yet.
any time to any causes?
Huh?
You don't donate your time to any causes?
No, not yet. I'm usually busy, pretty busy working and
So
hanging
you
out with
don't
my
have the
girlfriend and
freedom
doing
to do
stuff.
that.
Who said I don't have the freedom?
You said you're busy working. Got to
Yeah, I
work,
can
right?
make the time.
But
I
what do
get
you
3 days off a
lose?
week. I can make the time.
What do you lose?
What do you mean? What do I lose?
What do you lose when you do that?
When I
Money.
do what? Go to work?
When
Don't
you
go to
make
work?
when you try to set aside certain amount of time to do things like that that would be beneficial to your community, you lose money. You don't have the freedom to do it because you can lose your home. So this idea that
That's
you have freedom
that's a
is a
non
joke too.
that's a non-point. What you just made is absolutely not a point at all. Just
Sure.
because if I'm spending time, if I decide to spend time to go do something else, and during that time I'm not making money, I'm not free.
If you can't make the free choice to actually do it without a punishment that causes you to lose again your life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, then yes. Because again, we're talking about your definition of rights and why it doesn't make sense. Because
They're not. It's not. The thing is, it's not my definition of a right. My definition of a right comes from the Constitution,
does it
and they come from God. Yeah.
that well, they don't come from God. Otherwise, countries before us and would never mind. We're not going to go down that route. But
Hey, like I said, I do like to discuss theism. It would have been a good conversation.
I doubt it because I don't really care to argue against people that have religion. I hold the belief that even though I personally don't believe in God, people that believe in religion cause no harm in doing so. If it brings you peace, basically, I don't give a shit what you believe. So it would have been a really boring
Yeah.
conversation because I would have been like, I don't care. That's not my religion. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It would have been a whole
Yeah.
lot of that. So
That's fine. Well,
yeah.
I'm not religious, just by the way. I'm
Yeah.
just a theist. That's just the most general way to describe me. But that's not the conversation we're even having.
Okay. So, do you
The point
believe that you can change the Constitution?
No. I mean, you can do amendments, but the thing is, and when I refer to the
So
Constitution,
you
I know the
can.
Constitution's there are amendments, but I'm referring mostly to the Bill of Rights, which is the first 10 amendments. So I guess I'll be more specific when I say the Bill of Rights.
Yeah, okay.
What was going to be your point, though?
Well, if you don't believe that any of the other amendments exist beyond the first 10, I'm
I mean,
generally
I do believe
confused.
them.
Do you
I do
believe that
believe
they
they
should
exist.
exist?
Yeah. What do you mean?
Do you believe they should exist?
The Constitution, all of the amendments?
Yeah, all of
Sure.
them. So then your belief in the first 10 of the Constitution is also inconsistent
How so?
because you then can't just believe in the Bill of Rights and then say I also believe in the other amendments too and believe that we can change the Constitution through these amendments. It's inconsistent again.
I, I do not understand what you're saying to me right now. I believe in the full Constitution, and I
Okay,
believe the
including
Bill
the
of Rights.
amendments and the
Yeah.
ability to add more amendments.
Yes.
Okay. So why can we not add an amendment that says that healthcare is a right?
Because it's not a right.
Based
I mean,
on what?
that's my central part of the argument. You have a right to life, but everything else has been a privilege. Every single medical advancement ever we have, all the healthcare we have access to is a major privilege. It's the greatest privilege we have. Our population has doubled in the past 60 years because of how well we are able to take care of ourselves now. And again, that's a privilege. It's a privilege because other
Also,
people.
also we have a rise in infant mortality rate, maternal mortality rate.
Okay.
So
Does that
it
does that mean
seems
we're not overpopulated? Does that mean the
No, we're
population
not.
still isn't
We're not
growing?
overpopulated. Don't go down that road because oh my god, I'll pull up a population density map
Oh, I don't think
of
we're
the U.S.
overpopulated.
Yeah, that's
I
why I
meant
wanted to
I
stop
meant
you from saying that. Like, don't
no,
say
we're not
overpopulated.
overpopulated.
No, we
No,
have
we're
giant
plenty good on
swaths of
that.
land that
We
could
have
be filled.
plenty of space, plenty of food. But my point, I didn't mean overpopulated. I meant population growth. We're still not growing as a
I
population
mean,
like we have. I mean, we've
that's
doubled billions of people in the past 50 years.
yeah. Things are slowing down too. I wonder why.
That's fine. There's a variety of reasons that could be contributing to that.
Well, according to a lot of polling, the biggest reason is cost. People are waiting longer to have kids because they can't afford it.
Okay. And again, cost, the amount of money you make comes down to the decisions that you make.
No, it doesn't.
How? How does the amount of money you make not coincide with the decisions that you make in life?
Do you think I chose to grow up in Flint?
No,
Do you think I choose to stay here?
technically.
Do you think I can afford to spend money on a place that's more expensive to live when I'm barely scraping by in a place that's supposed to be less expensive to?
Currently, no. I would say no, but that doesn't mean it's impossible.
Doesn't I never said anything about impossible. What I
Okay.
said is if it's down to choice, then you can freely admit that I don't choose to stay here. I also don't choose to stay in poverty. I
And
don't
I would disagree with
choose.
that.
Well, then you're wrong, but that doesn't really matter then. Because again, you're being very, very inconsistent. You give these definitions and then you're ready to change it the very second that you know it's inconvenient. So let's be a little
I
bit
don't
more
think
consistent.
I don't think I've been inconsistent at all.
Oh yeah, very. Like I said, if you believe that it's a choice to not have enough money, and then you freely admit that I can't afford to live elsewhere in order to get a job with more money. You see what I'm saying? The
No,
pursuit of being able to earn more money is based on my ability to be at a place where I can earn more money.
not entirely. It's based on your ability to make more money, whether it's physically or mentally. I mean, how is
I can't
if
will money into existence.
I don't mean psychically. I meant mentally, as in the decisions and the way your brain works. If look, so you're telling me that you don't have a choice right now in terms of poverty. Like you
No,
do not you don't have a choice. Then
no.
how is it possible that somebody could be homeless in this country and a millionaire within a year? How is it possible that people do it anyway?
Luck. It's also very incredibly obscenely rare. It's luck.
So we're going to disagree on that.
It's
I think luck is a very small factor in everyone's life. I think about good.
let me give ask you for an example then. Who did that?
Are you kidding me? I don't know a person's name off the top of my head,
Then why
but
did
you
you
can't.
use the example? What the hell?
Do you
Come
think
on,
that's never?
man.
Are you gonna try and tell me that that's never happened? It does happen in
It
this
hasn't
country.
happened in the current society, no.
People grow up in dirt and become millionaires. Okay, you cannot tell me that that doesn't happen in this country. If
Usually
so,
based
then
on how they were raised, who they were born to, and their
well, yeah,
vicinity
that's a good point.
to an area that has high low poverty rates. Excuse me.
That's I mean,
Like
no,
if you grow up poor in New York City when you're very close to Wall Street and everything, yes, you are very close to a place where you can earn a ton
yeah,
of money. That
yeah.
vicinity does matter. But if you grow up in Flint, you're fucked. You get to stay here for the rest of your life and you don't get a choice on that because you can't afford to live anywhere else because
You're
anywhere
gonna tell
else is
me
more expensive.
you're gonna tell me nobody's made it out of Flint.
Very few people do.
Okay,
And to the extent that people do, they often end up coming back.
okay.
I like to refer
So,
to Flint as a black hole.
that's
And
how I
there's a
feel about
lot
Florida.
of black holes. Hey, so then you get it.
Well, in a different way. I think
Hmm.
people just end up going back to Florida because You go to Florida if you're running from something. That's always been my opinion. But
Poverty.
it's still not refuting my central point in that you
It
have
does
decisions to
because.
make. And then you're
But
saying it's
what
out of your
decision can be
out of your
made?
control.
What decision can be made?
What, financially?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a financial
So that
advisor. I'm not a career advisor. I'm not going
you
to sit
don't
here and
need
give
to
you
be.
ideas on how to make more money, but
If
I'm just
if
letting you know.
if people in poverty just live in poverty by choice, and you have to be a financial manager in order to decide how they're going to get out of poverty, I got news for you. You actually don't have a choice there. You recognize that it's not a choice. You're playing around with your definitions again. You're being
No, I'm
inconsistent.
not. You're completely misinterpreting what I'm saying.
If
That's
you
all that's
don't have
happening.
if you can't say exactly what poor people can choose to do, what decisions they made, how can you honestly judge that is based on decisions on why they're in poverty?
Because I can't make specific instances on what they can do because there are thousands of different ways to make there are hundreds of thousands of different ways you can be successful in this country. That's what I mean.
Name
I don't.
one.
Oh my god. Are you serious?
Yeah, dead
How-
serious.
Own a business, become a doctor, learn a skill. I mean, for Christ's sake, go to school. What else?
Do you know how much
I mean,
money becoming a doctor is? You don't know how much
it's a
money
lot.
college is? Again, we're talking about financial barriers. We might as well just be talking about poverty here. Because the thing is, you clearly have no understanding of poverty, but you do have a lot of judgments and beliefs on it.
I understand poverty. I have
No, you
family.
don't.
I have a huge family. I've
Mm-hmm.
got the entire spectrum. I've got people living in trailers, and I've got
Mm-hmm.
people that own construction companies in my family.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what they all have in common?
Hmm.
Nothing. We're all born in the same place. Other than that, it's the decisions that have been made since then.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that you can be born in shitty situations, but that doesn't mean it's impossible to get out of them. It comes down to your decisions, and it comes down to really
And
the biggest
again,
privilege is having a good set of parents. That's really the greatest privilege in the country is having two parents that care about you and are in your life.
Did you know
Because
that
if you can have
the greatest factor in your trajectory in life is zip code?
zip code,
Yes.
how so?
When you're born in a high poverty area, you have less of a chance to grow up to be wealthy. It has nothing to do with any choices that the parents made. It's based on where you're born. If this
Okay.
is as freely a choice as you believe, then you have to believe that people want to be in poverty for some reason, that they want to suffer.
It's not that. It's just that they don't know any better. Typically, not. There are many situations. It's like what you're saying. It's like what you're talking right now. You're asking me for all these examples. A lot of situations,
Yes,
people just
I'm
don't know
asking
what
you to
do.
provide proof to the arguments that you're providing. That's what I'm asking for. I'm asking you to actually back up your points. Oh, I believe
have
it's
been
a
backing up
decision.
my
What
point.
decisions can they make? I don't know. There's just decisions. You're just this blanket idea of make a decision, and I don't know what decision that could possibly be. You want to know why you don't know what that decision could possibly be? There isn't one.
It's not that I don't know. When I say I don't know, what I mean is that there's a lot. There's a lot of
Pick
decisions that can be
one.
made.
Pick
Oh my
one.
God.
You can't say
Learn a
become
skill.
a doctor.
Learn a skill. Go to a
How?
trade school.
How?
Work your way up. Start at
If
some
you're
company.
working 40, 50, 60 hours per week and have children, what time do you have to learn that skill? And what access to the instruments you need to learn that skill do you have?
Again, this is getting too specific right now. You're getting very specific because I know this is
I'm
a very
asking
personal
you to
subject
back up
for
your
you.
point.
I have been backing up my point.
No, you haven't, though. You've just been saying, make a decision. And I ask you, what decision have poor people not made? And you said, I don't know. And, oh, there's just so many. Learn a skill. And then when I ask you, how are they supposed to learn a skill when they have no time? You have nothing,
Manage
no
time.
time or money. It's not. How can you manage time if you work 60 hours a week and have children? Do you just
Again,
go without eating, go without sleeping? What do you go without? What do you want to tell poor people that they're supposed to go without in order to
again,
learn a skill?
you're getting specific. You're talking
Yeah.
very specific scenarios right now.
Yeah, because we need to. Because if you believe that there's a choice and they can make this choice to get out of poverty, and I'm pointing out how it's impossible under the conditions that we currently live, guess what? Your point is wrong.
It's not impossible though. That's my point. Is it's not impossible, and there's no way you could tell me. There's no way you could actually say it is impossible because it's not.
Yeah, you're right. People can win the lottery.
Oh my god, you're really big into fate and into luck.
I mean, because that's a reality.
I know it's a reality.
If you know
I
it's a
mean,
reality, then guess what?
You put way more into it than I do. Is my point.
I mean,
I think fate and luck play a small role in your life, but I believe it well over 90% of your life is determined by decisions you make.
who do you think has worked consistently harder in their life? The general person who's worked like 80 hours a week at General Motors in Flint, Michigan, and is still under the poverty line, or Jeff Bezos.
What does this have to do with your argument?
If you believe that people can just work their way out of poverty, then you have to also explain.
I didn't say.
And
if you also
believe that it's not, we'll say, close to impossible to get out of poverty, you have to explain to me why someone like Jeff Bezos, who was raised by Wall Street bankers, who became a Wall Street banker himself, whose family funded his business that lost money for the first, decade of its existence, is now the second richest person in the world, but someone who's worked consistently 80 hours a week in Flint, Michigan, busting their ass at not being able to apply for the union because they were hired as a temp at General Motors, cannot.
So
they work more.
You're taking two polar opposite examples. I don't think Jeff Bezos.
Why are they polar opposite examples?
Because you're talking about somebody that was born millionaire and has turned it into billions of dollars. I don't know why we're even talking about Jeff Bezos.
Do you know why he was able to do that?
Because he was born in a good situation. Because luck played part of that. But
Yes.
what did he do on that luck?
What did he do?
He became the second richest man in the world. He wasn't born the second richest man in the world.
Do you think that he actually wrote the code for Amazon?
Probably not.
So then, what did he do?
My point is that it does not matter what he did, whether or not he wrote the code. I don't know why we're talking about Jeff Bezos. What does he have to do with this argument that healthcare is not a human right?
Because if you believe that poverty is a choice and that decisions can be made and that people just need to, quote, work harder, you have to be able to back up.
I never said that.
That it's in your assumption. That just get a skill.
That's a projection.
Every example that you've provided as a way to get out of poverty requires an excess amount of work that is not available to the poor.
And again, it's
and it doesn't matter what time management.
To make someone's life better. And I'm not a life coach.
You shouldn't have to be. And regardless, a life coach, they wouldn't be there's a reason why the people who have life coaches are the rich. It's not for poor people.
But a life coach? A life coach is just a mentor. A mentor can come from anywhere.
I'm talking about a paid one.
I know that.
And what? Oh man, Jesus, God, you have no understanding of poverty at all. You may have family that lives in a trailer park, but you also think that family that lives in the trailer park made the decision to be in that situation.
They did.
Based on what?
What do you mean based on what?
Based on what? What choice did they make that landed them in poverty?
Terrible financial choices.
Like what?
Oh my god. I don't
You don't know.
You're asking me to explain the financial decisions of some of my family members.
Just use a bare bones example of some way that you believe impoverished people messed up their financial situation by spending their money on something. Give me an example.
Well, an example for one, it would be drugs and gambling. That's a huge one in my family. You talk about winning a lottery ticket.
Do you know what causes drug addiction?
What?
Poverty.
Poverty does not cause drug
Do you know
addiction.
why
Rich
people
people are addicted to drugs.
suffering
Drug
from
addiction's it's a mental state.
No, it's a disease. First of all, second of all, no. Like
So rich people don't get addicted to drugs.
they do, but they don't suffer as many consequences from it.
Seriously?
Yes.
You're speaking very, very I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but you're speaking
I'm sure
in
you
like
don't like
blanket
Hunter
terms.
Biden, right?
Huh?
I'm sure you don't like Hunter Biden, right?
No.
What punishment did he actually get for being addicted to crack that, say, I don't know, the general person would have to suffer?
Nothing. But do you think that has to be with the fact that he's rich or the fact that he's tied
Yes,
politically to the system?
both.
I'd say it's more of his connections, not so much the money he makes.
Do you know how he has those connections? Because he's
From the
rich
decisions that his father made
to
by
make
getting
himself
involved in government.
rich. Yeah, and to make himself rich because you don't get rich off of the government. The amount that you're paid doesn't it barely puts you in what the top 5%. You get paid
Yeah, federal
$400,000 a
employees.
year.
That's the president. That's at the most.
Do you know
Well,
how they
except for
make?
Fauci, he makes $800K. That's a whole nother thing.
Well, yeah, he's a specialization that he actually works on. You know, he's a doctor. There's various other things. I'm not going to defend Fauci because I don't like him either.
Again,
But
yeah.
I'm just going to throw that out there that, yes, he's specialized. Therefore, he makes whatever amount of money on top of his specialization. The biggest reason why people make the money that they do in Congress and why our Congress is filled with poor people, filled with rich people, is because they invest that money into stocks, and then they make decisions that affect those stocks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a corrupt government. We both agree on that.
Mm-hmm. Probably not in the same way, but again,
not in the same way,
this boils down to one central point. In order to make money, and this is a classic thing, I'm sure you've heard it. Stop me if you haven't. In order to make money, you need what?
Knowledge.
Wrong. Oh my god. You need to have money.
Yeah, that helps. But knowledge is far more important. You can have $5 million and waste it in a month if you don't know what to do with it. I mean, it's like we know all those rappers from like the 90s that went broke, like MC Hammer, because he didn't know what to do with it.
That isn't why he went broke. The reason he went broke is because he started investing in his community.
I don't know much about that.
The people he was paying were people from his impoverished community. And he hired too many of them because there were too many impoverished people in his community.
Okay, well.
So if you actually look
that's
into
still
it,
a very specific
also
scenario,
things like he did spend too much money on clothes. I will admit that. But
yeah, giant golden pants only have so much value.
There's a lot of stories about run-ins with like he wasn't a gangster rapper. We all know that. But like if you're going to use MC Hammer as an example, you also got to look up what running into him was like. Like people barely would walk away with their lives because he may not have been a gangster rapper, but he knew all the gangsters and he hired them. And they protected the shit out of him. And that's why he paid them.
Okay.
And that's a big reason. And the reason why he was able to do that is because they were all impoverished. Hey, look, they made a decision, except for it's because one of them got extremely lucky. There's that word again, and was able to pursue a music career.
How
A
was he
thing that
lucky for
most people
pursuing
can't.
a music career?
How many
I
people in
think
the
again,
how many
I
people
think
in this
you put too
country
much into luck.
how many people in this country do you think pursue music as a career?
Tons,
How many of them do you think are talented?
very few.
How many of them do you think are more talented than the people who wind up getting picked?
Majority.
How many of the people who were picked were raised in richer families?
Some,
The
but
majority.
not all.
The majority.
Okay.
So if we're gonna move to music, I mean, I was in the music industry, so yeah, like believe me, that's if you're going to use an example of that's not luck, that's just they worked their way. Tell me, I can tell you hand down, there are people who were far more talented and worked far harder than the people who wound up getting picked. And oftentimes it's because the people who were picked had rich families and connections. Do you
Okay.
honestly want to tell me that the calling who was raised next door to a famous director, and that's how they were able to get their music career, had the same chances than somebody in Flint? Again, to use my
I don't
example.
even I don't even know what you're talking about at this point. I don't Is the calling a band or something?
Yeah, it's a really shitty band that had no talent.
I've
I'm
never
just
heard of
using
them.
just an example of someone that really sucks. And have you ever heard of the song? Oh, what the fuck is that song? Man, I'll have to use another one. Do you honestly think Nickelback grew up with rich families too? Do you think that Nickelback is as good as a local band?
I don't understand how this is part of the argument.
If your if your
Seriously.
view is that luck, if luck has very little to do with people's trajectory in life, when we can actually look at the data and it's actually zip code, you can't qualify that.
Look, just because zip code is the top indicator, again, doesn't mean it's the only indicator, and again, does not make it impossible.
It kind of does, because you don't choose where you're raised. You don't choose your parents. And
No.
oftentimes the problems that come with parenting are related directly to them being in poverty.
And again, like I said, the greatest privilege you can have in this country is having a good set of parents. That's luck.
Rich parents.
No. Good parents.
Let's say you have the best parents in the world, but they're in poverty. You honestly think that they're going anywhere?
I don't know if they're going anywhere, but you might
Do
get
do you
somewhere.
believe that the majority of the parents in this country are shit?
No.
Jesus Christ, man. That's the majority of the population in this country. So if you believe that do you believe the majority of the parents in this country are good parents?
I don't know how to feel about the majority of the parents in this country.
But that's
I don't know
your
how I could have an opinion on that.
qualification. If the majority of the people in this country are in poverty, I got news for you. Either they're just all terrible parents, which that's a judgment that's going to be wild to make,
Well, yeah, that's why I'm
or,
not making that judgment.
yeah, I know, or it has less to do with their parenting and more to do with the fact that they're in poverty in the first place and it's a black hole.
Well, again, I'm not saying having a good set of parents is the only factor. I'm saying it is a great privilege.
But what
Excuse me.
defines a great parent?
Raising your children right. That's the as
What's the
blanket as a
definition
statement
of that?
as the question.
What's the
That
definition of that? Define Like these.
Raising your children to have confidence to be able to go out into the world. That's the best answer I've got for you right now. The confidence and the know-how to navigate through the world. Because the world's tough. It's very hard for everybody.
Do you think that my parents didn't instill a lot of values in me?
I have no idea.
Do you think that my parents were good?
I have no idea. I don't know a single thing about you other than the conversations we've had.
Do you think that I am armed with, based on the knowledge that I've displayed from the couple of times that you've been here, do you think that I have the knowledge to navigate the world?
I don't know. Seriously.
I do. I promise you I do. And you want to know what I came back as? A socialist.
Okay.
I became a socialist in my mid-30s because I recognize that the system is fundamentally broken and that poor people are not allowed to succeed in the society. Not because of any choices that they made, but because of where they were born, things completely out of their control. And I've sat back and I've watched the race to the bottom in this country that we have, based on this idea of individualism, that you can just work your way out of it. You just need to make the right decisions, blah, blah, blah. It's all individual. And I've watched us as a society tank. I watched my community end up like that. Nobody made the choices in Flint to have Flint end up in poverty. Well, somebody did, but I got news for you.
I was going to say that's governance, though.
Yeah. And it was governance loosening restrictions on outsourcing jobs overseas.
Yeah, and I disagree with that.
And why did they do that?
Jobs here. Because it made them more money.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what the cause of that is? Greed. That's what I said in your last stream. Sin is the cause of bad things in the world, and that's something people don't really like to acknowledge. Personally, I would have never.
Where does that greed come from?
Overseas. What do you mean, where does it come from?
Yeah, where does it come from? Do you think that there's a system that encourages that greed?
Encourages or not, it's still a decision you make.
Explain capitalism to me.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Capitalism is owning the means of production, essentially.
That's socialism, buddy.
Privately. Socialism is when it's publicly.
Well,
capitalism is basically when you're like, I'm going to have a product or a service and I'm going to sell it.
Capitalism is when the means of productions are owned by a small number of capitalists. People that own capital.
Okay.
That's
what I said.
No, it's not. Because you can be the private owner and still not own capital. You can own a business and still not have capital.
Okay.
You're not neither of us are capitalists.
I am.
You like no. What capital do you own? Bingo.
I don't know.
You're not a capitalist. Right, you don't own any capital.
I'm a capitalist in the sense that I like.
You believe in capitalism. You're a fanboy of it, but you're not a capitalist. Okay.
Okay. So what is the point?
My point is, in a system where that's a very small number of people who own the majority of everything, the means of production, the finances, everything, how does that not encourage greed?
I don't understand what you mean. Greed comes from whether or not you're going to make the decision to be greedy or not.
What incentive is for them under capitalism to not be greedy?
I don't even understand what you're asking.
What incentive is there under capitalism for them to choose to not be greedy?
Okay, repeating the question louder does not explain what you're asking.
In a system where it's constantly encouraging you to pursue the most amount of profit for the smallest amount of people, and those people at the top making those decisions to constantly grow their own wealth, That's the basis of capitalism. What about that system doesn't encourage them to be greedy? What what reason is there for them to make the choice to not pursue greed?
Being a morally good person. You can't force people to not sin. There's no legislation, there's no system you can set up where people are not going to sin.
Yet, wait, what? Yes, there is.
What system exists where humans will not sin?
This one. we
What do you mean
we.
this?
Why do you think murder is illegal? Why do you think theft is illegal?
Yeah, it's illegal. It doesn't stop people from
Hey,
people from
and
doing it.
guess what? They're also sins.
Yeah.
That right there, you can legislate based on sins. It's just we choose not to
It doesn't
legislate
the
greed.
thing is it's still going to come down to decisions. And you can't legislate the amount of money people make
What?
because you can't
Why would
legislate
they
the
want to
money
make
people spend
but why would they want to make the decision to not be greedy? They're benefiting from it.
because they don't have morals. The thing is, I could never become a multimillionaire because I'm not greedy. I'd have to give my money away. I'd have to pay people more. And that's the thing, is it just comes down to morale or morals, not morale, morals. There's nothing stopping them other than they're just being greedy. And there are
Okay.
plenty of capitalists that are
Let's
not greedy. There are
let,
plenty of people in this country that make tons of money and pay their employees well, contribute to their society, donate to charity, etc. If we're gonna
but
hyper focus on the corporations that run this company or
wait.
country, we're gonna have the same opinion in that they're just greedy and overinflated. What?
Wow. Just wow.
What?
Okay. Let's connect it back to what brought us here. The fact that people can make decisions to get out of poverty. You
I mean, that's
agree. You agree that the majority of people who are rich in this country are greedy.
I agree that not necessarily, because if we're talking majority of people that are rich, we have to define what rich means first. If we're
Million
talking about
dollars
like
and
the
up.
$1 million and up,
Yeah. 1%. They could be anywhere from a lawyer to working in Congress to Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk.
okay. And so, what was the question again?
Connecting it back to the fact that you believe people in poverty can choose to make certain decisions to get out of poverty.
hmm
Okay. How can you also square that with rich people who control this country being greedy?
Rich people controlling the country is different than rich people from the definition we just created.
How?
If we're talking controlling the country, we're referring to like
Remember, we're talking
legislation
about
and
capitalism.
corporations, correct?
We're talking about capitalism here, okay? Where literally the definition of capitalism is those are the people with capital. Those rich people are the people with capital. They're the capitalists. They're the ones that own everything. You think that they don't control the system?
What about people with like mom and pop shops and stores
They're
that are
not
capitalists?
millionaires. And a lot of them went out of
Okay.
business during COVID.
And that was due to legislation.
Well, it was actually due to the virus, but okay.
It was due to the legislation. The virus did not close down businesses,
If they would
forcing
have
people
died
to
from
not
the
go to
virus,
business.
guess what? That business closes. That's why what you're saying, again, does not make sense.
We're not going to get into that conversation because we're not going to make it anywhere in terms of a
Yeah.
pandemic. I already know that. We
Honestly,
just
if we
won't.
did, we would cycle back into healthcare. But
Well,
I'm just seeing that there's
that
a
is the main point here.
fundamental misunderstanding of like how everything in this country works. Like you were led to a place where you were told a lot of things and not really given any answers. Therefore, you believe again that poor people can make certain decisions to get out of poverty, but you have no idea what those are. And the reason you don't have that knowledge isn't because you're not a life coach or a financial advisor or anything like that. It's because you've never thought about the fact that that's not true. That's not reality.
It's not true that people can't make better decisions.
People can make better decisions, but it's never going to leave them out of poverty.
You keep saying never, and I
Yep.
keep saying it's not impossible. And that's where we're
People in
disagreeing.
Flint, yes. People, if you live in Flint, if you didn't grow up in the very small area that has rich people in it, guess what? You're going to stay in poverty the rest of your life.
I disagree.
That's you can disagree, but reality disagrees with you. Like I said, the biggest primary factor of people's trajectory in life is their zip code. It's not choices. It's not it's not good parenting. Although you could argue for a two-parent home, but that even then there's the different
That's what I meant.
definitions of two-parent home that a lot of people like yourself disagree with, such as if they're not married, they're still a two-parent home because they're both taking care of a child, but they're not married, so fuck them, I guess. But
Well, I
like,
never said that.
I know you didn't. I said people like you, but people with your belief system. So,
Generally. Okay.
so if we can literally see that people's zip codes are related to their trajectory in life, like we can visibly see that, we can see the data, then it's got to be something else.
The thing is that you're saying it's the greatest contributor based on the data and the trajectory in life.
I'm not saying it's a contributor. A zip code is not a contributor, but it does tell a story.
Yeah. But the thing is that doesn't mean it is an absolute. And again, back to my main point,
Nothing is
is
an
it's not
absolute.
impossible.
Nothing is an
Of
absolute,
course
but things
nothing's
can be
absolute.
damn near impossible.
Near impossible is not impossible. Just because something's hard
Is
doesn't mean
is
it's
is that
impossible.
your barrier for entry though? Is that really where you want to like draw the line and what's good for your fellow citizenry, that we need to just be like uh you know on the idea that, well, it's not impossible that you could get rich or even be able to buy a home at this point, because let's face it, again, capitalist class has bought up all the homes, which get ready for the next housing crisis. And yes, this
Yeah,
was going to
it's
happen
happening in
under
2
Trump
years
too.
because of BlackRock, and it's gonna be a rental crisis.
Yeah, and there was
I'm already aware of all
that
that.
buying and selling was happening under Trump. So before you think, it would have happened under Republican too. And yes, I'm not a
It's
fan of
intentional.
Biden. Biden is basically a Republican too. He's legislating as a Republican. Tax cuts are still in place. He has done nothing different than Trump, like save for a few facial things. But see, that's coming regardless to anything, and that's decisions other people made, and that's going to affect who?
All of us.
Who's it going to affect the most?
Poverty, I'm gonna assume, is the answer you want.
Yes, the impoverished, the same people that it
Mhm.
affected the last time, people who ended up homeless and weren't able to get any sort of a home ownership after that, and then they had to start renting because
Mhm.
somebody else came and bought up those homes. Problem is, what's going to happen now is all these banks that don't want to participate in renting because they're going to be too scared are also not going to want to rent out to people. And the problem with that is then you have more homeless people. And none of those, there's nothing there, no decision that any of these impoverished people could have possibly made that wasn't already made for them by a system that values a single amount of people's own moneyed interest over everything else. There's no decision that they could have made.
Okay. Look, I agree with you on the housing situation. Like we are in the middle of a
There's a
situation where
lot
we
of
have
things we
private
can talk about.
companies
It's the same thing
buying
with
off the
wages.
entire stock.
It's the same thing with wages. I
Where
don't
where
have
did
any
wages
choice in
come
how
from?
much I get paid.
Yeah, you do.
No, I don't.
You have control. You don't have
No,
a
I
choice.
don't.
How
Me
so?
singularly? No, I don't.
Uh, So
I
then
can't
what is
walk into my
prevent?
job tomorrow and tell them that they have to pay me more money.
Okay.
Because if they say no, guess what? I made a decision to pursue a thing and they told me no, which means I don't actually have the freedom to actually have that money. I know you can
No.
say find a better job, but what if I'm already getting paid top dollar for for the skills that I have, which I've been to school. I've learned skilled trades. I have these skills. You have to go to school to be a medical biller.
Then I don't know what to tell you. Again, I'm not a financial or life coach.
And if you have
You
to
can
be,
figure out ways though. I have made more money every single year of my life. I've made a point to. My girlfriend and I compete with each other. We figure out new ways all the time on how we're going to make money and how we're going to make a life. What is that response?
good for you.
Thank you. It's the decisions we make. We now live in a house that's bigger than any house either of us have grown up in because of the decisions that we're making and because we're figuring out ways to do this
Good for
instead of
you.
just sticking with a job saying, well, this is what I do. This is the only amount of money I'm going to make. Change the entire system based around me.
What's your vicinity to a rich area?
Like, how far away am I from rich people?
Yeah.
In general?
Yeah, like
Not far now.
is your
Okay. And a year ago, I lived in the south side of a city in a shitty area.
what city?
Or 2 years ago, rather.
What city?
St. Pete. That's where I'm from.
Oh man, this is unfortunate for you because I know St. Pete. St. Pete has a lot of rich people in it.
I
Your
know that.
vicinity to money was still there.
Did you live in the south side? You ever go to the south side, though?
It doesn't matter. You still have a vicinity to money.
Okay.
That's a
And then
place. That's a
after
place
that,
that rich people go to fucking vacation, dude.
I moved to a
My
city in North
parents live in
Carolina that
Largo.
was very much just as poor. I moved to a place in North Carolina that looked like the place where half my family lives in Alabama. There was no vicinity to rich people there.
Did you
But either way, we
did you
worked on
move
it.
there for a job?
No,
Why did you move there?
it was the third place we applied to on rental homes, and it was the first place that approved of us. It's just where we ended up. I need to re-explain that.
Yeah, because why wouldn't you look in your own community? Why would you spend all that money to move across the country?
What are you talking
My
about?
one of my chatters wants to know if you were homeless.
No, I was never homeless.
Yeah.
I don't know what that has to do with anything.
Well, because if you had housing placement, that's the only reason why you would have no choice and be sent across the country.
What? I don't understand what's going on right now. What are you confused about something?
Yeah. Why did you said wait a minute. So you were placed in this home. This is where they approved you to go. Who?
The company I rent from. We had applied to several different houses. The first one never got back to us. The second one took too long, and then the third one approved of us, and it was all in a very short time frame that we were moving, and we just ended up where we ended up.
There was nothing available where you lived.
There was. We just didn't want to live there anymore. I've wanted to move out. Look, the thing is, If you're referring to
How
like
did you have the
why
money
did
to
I move
move
from Florida?
out of there?
I saved it.
By having a decent job, right?
I had an okay job. I worked for Papa John's. I delivered pizzas, and I saved my money because we made the right decisions financially.
And you got lucky that nothing happened in the process.
I didn't get lucky. We had a lot of things happen in the process. And again, I don't know what that has to do with anything.
It's just very, very strange that you didn't have any choice but to move across the country. Like
I did have a
you,
choice. We
you,
just didn't want to live there anymore. I don't know what you're confused about. I've wanted to move out of Florida my whole life and live up here. I'm sorry if that's confusing to you.
my confusion is you would move to a rural area that you said was really impoverished and had nothing in it.
Mhm. I mean, not nothing. It's just compared to where I came from, nothing.
Uh huh.
I
And
don't know
you
what you're
say that
confused
that was
about.
a choice that the rental company made.
Not
I've worked with rental
necessarily, no.
companies and they don't, I've never had a rental company tell me where I had to go.
I never said they did. We applied to 3 different rental companies.
And it
First
just
one
so
never
happened that
approved of us.
the one that approved you was all the way across the country.
Yes. I don't know what you're missing here right now. I don't know what you're confused about, and I don't know if this has anything to do with the conversation we're having.
No, I'm trying to understand a lot here because that doesn't make any sense. Okay, let's move back to the
Well,
conversation at
I
hand.
moved. That's the yeah, that's all I
Yeah,
really need from that.
yeah, because
But
roughly it's meaningless. What about your parents? How much
yeah,
money do they make?
I mean, my mom makes a decent amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't even know. She's been pharmaceutical sales rep her whole life. Um,
Oh,
which I'm
now it
not.
makes sense. Okay,
What makes sense?
pharmaceutical rep.
Yes.
Yeah, it makes a lot of money.
Yeah, she makes good money now. She hasn't always made that much money.
How long has she been a pharmaceutical rep?
I mean, my whole life,
Okay,
at
so
least
for
as long
the
as I can think.
okay, so for the vast majority of your life, you've had a rich parent. Okay,
No, no,
but you said your
don't
entire
even make that assumption.
you literally just told me that.
Told you what? I told you what her job is.
Yeah, you told me she's been a pharmaceutical rep for your entire life,
Yes,
which means she was rich.
she's not rich. She's a sales rep, and she made money accordingly to how well she was doing her job. And like I said, she's doing way
Six
better now
figures, right?
because over time she's been doing bigger. I don't know, but I would not. I would not assume so,
I would.
considering what happened.
Considering what I know about the pharmaceutical industry and pharmaceutical reps, yeah, I would say she's making north of six figures, especially now.
Again, she probably is now. Definitely now.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Shit.
cost of living, if you're talking about during the 90s, she was making basically six figures then.
I don't even know if she had that back in the 90s. But
If she had that job, then I got news for you.
that's what I'm
the
saying. She didn't have that job in the
pharmaceutical.
90s.
Hmm?
She didn't have that job in the 90s. In the 90s, she was married to my dad. They got divorced when I was like 2. And my dad was a software engineer in the 90s. He had money. But then they got divorced and he's since then had a variety of jobs. My dad, if you want to know how much money my dad makes, I don't know. It depends on how things are going. He could be completely in debt one day or be doing great the next year. He kind of just floats around and just does whatever he wants.
Wow, that's nice to be able to have that leeway.
Yeah. It's
Again,
because he's made a lot of great decisions. He's got great credit, saved money greatly. He grew up in the woods in
because
Alabama.
he was a software engineer in the 90s.
Yeah, and that was a good decision that he made.
Not everyone can be a software engineer,
No.
especially
What's
in
your
the
point?
90s. Like, that's so. I
Yeah,
bet.
it was good for him. Like I
So,
said, it was a smart decision that he made out of college to get into that
you
field.
literally just confirmed to me that at least even if you don't believe that your mom was rich, your dad was.
My dad was, yeah, he was doing well for a while. But again, he's had bouts of non-money because he's always been on his own. He's never worked a job that was completely secure, at least in my conscious life. You know, in the early 90s, like I said, he was a software engineer. He was going to the big city every day to work in an office like they made movies about. But he's always been his own person. And like I said, there's been times where he's had nothing, absolutely nothing. He's gone from top to bottom to top to bottom because of the decisions he makes.
He's lost homes
Yeah, once.
once.
I don't know
Like,
what this has to do with our conversation though about Medicare for all and how it's not a human right.
because I need to have a fundamental understanding of how you view poverty. And I'm I'm really getting it. I'm really getting it. You have when I said you have no real understanding of it, yeah, I'm sticking with that.
That's fine, but that's just your
Somebody in my
opinion of
chat
that.
wants to know if your dad was homeless when he lost the house.
No, he was not homeless.
He had
He lived
somewhere to
with a
go.
friend, if you consider that homeless. But
I
I
mean,
remember I remember going
depending
and
on the
visiting.
circumstances, I do because I went through that too.
Yeah, I mean he lived in a room at his friend's condo somewhere for a
His
while, and I
condo.
remember that. And I remember when I was like a kid,
So his
not
friend was rich
understanding.
too.
No,
He had a condo.
oh, that's like a house. It's like a small
No,
house that
no,
doesn't cost as much.
it costs a lot. It costs a fuck ton more than a house.
Condo? No, no,
Yeah,
not at least not the ones that they were living
absolutely.
in.
Absolutely, condominiums cost more than a house. You rent those. Anything you have to rent has the added expense of renting fees on top of it to cover whatever they're supposed to cover, or if they don't cover anything and they just say, well, we might have to cover, expenses later after you move. Yeah, renting always costs more. What are you talking about?
Well, besides the fact that he didn't rent it, he owned it. You can own condos.
Yeah, I
What
know.
does your perception of my dad's friend being rich have to do with anything?
He had a vicinity to money, and he was already privileged as is.
He was
Therefore,
privileged as is.
even though he went through a hard financial time, his vicinity to money allowed him to get other jobs that gave him an even more vicinity to money. The same as your mom, too. You actually grew up in privilege. You may not think you did.
I know I did. I never said I didn't.
Okay, so there we go. We're back to what I said already. You have no fundamental understanding of what it means to be in poverty, to live in an impoverished community and be in poverty.
I understand to a
You
degree.
disagreed with me.
Disagreed on what? That
Well,
it's
well then
impossible?
you disagreed with me that that you didn't have an understanding of poverty. Because I made this claim already and you're like, "No, I do." Let
I
me
mean, I understand it
so
to a degree. I
you
don't
don't
believe it,
understand it at all. You don't understand it at all.
and I disagree with that.
Well, coming from somebody who's
What about the
as close
people
to an
in
expert
my
as
family? What about people in my family that were born in the same zip code and are now on two different ends of the spectrum?
what zip code did they end up in?
No, what are you talking about? It's in Alabama somewhere. I don't know the zip codes of Alabama.
Well, sounds like your dad got lucky, honestly, more than
He didn't
anything.
get lucky.
Yeah, he did. Oh
How did
yeah,
he get lucky?
he got lucky that there was the .com bump in the '90s, and he was a
He
software
didn't get
engineer.
lucky. He saw that
Yeah, he got
coming.
lucky.
He didn't get lucky.
Yeah,
He saw an
and
industry that was
I'm betting
booming,
he
that was
also
growing.
cashed out before the crash happened in the late '90s, and then he got back in when it was good again.
I don't know the details of my father's entire
He got
career.
he got lucky. He got lucky. I know you.
I disagree.
Look. I know what the issue here with admitting luck is. You want to see you want to see your parents as like you deify them. You deify them,
Okay.
and
As in
I
I hold them to a high
understand that.
regard?
I understand that. I will tell you that there's an extent of privilege that I grew up in. Like we
Okay.
were middle class. My dad had a union job. We never made six figures ever or anywhere close to it. Like there was one year where my dad said he hit 90, but it's because he worked every single day 12-hour shifts for that year. Like
Okay.
that's the closest we had. And I'll tell you, it didn't feel very privileged because we never saw him. And when we did, he was miserable, but that's what he had to do in order to keep a roof over our heads.
And again, my dad has been through the same deal. He worked 60, 80 hours a week one time to make about the same amount of money, around 100K. Hardly ever saw
He,
him, but
I would say he made a lot more than that.
no, I knew how much he made.
Mm-hmm. And again,
Well, what was the point?
you admit that you grew up privileged. You don't have any understanding of poverty. You only think you do.
And I disagree.
And the reason you don't want to believe that luck has anything to do with it is because you deify your parents, not because it's the truth.
I think luck is a small factor. I've said that many times,
It's the biggest factor.
and we disagree there.
Well, you can disagree with me all you want because this is an opinion.
I think
This
it
is a
is an
fact.
opinion.
It is. It is
I think it's a
100% a
I think
fact.
it's a fact that luck is a small part and that the decision you make is a much bigger part. I think that's a fact,
So
which is
you
why we
think
both have disagreeing opinions.
so you think
I
that
at least recognize that it's an opinion.
Donald Trump's kid has the same possible trajectory as the poorest person in Flint?
No,
What about even the middle class person in Flint?
similar, closer.
No. Do you know what the median income of Flint is?
No. What's the median?
No, last time I checked, it was 23K. Let's check again just to be sure. $17,000 as of 2009.
The median?
Median.
Okay.
Do you think that the middle class of Flint, meaning they make $17,000 a year, has anywhere near the same capacity to grow, to earn money as anyone who was born to rich parents?
I think they have a different predisposition. Obviously, the answer is, of course, they have different. What was the word you even used
Trajectory.
in the trajectory? Yeah, of course they
Why
have
why
different
do they have
trajectories
different trajectories?
because of the situation that they're born into. That's the small factor of
What
luck
what
that
do,
I believe in.
That's a huge factor. Who you were born to?
It's a factor, but it's
It's
not
a
the only factor. There's still decisions you make. There's still things you can learn in life. You can still make decisions in life. The thing I don't think you're acknowledging that I'm saying is that it's not impossible.
No,
It just
I completely acknowledge that. But
okay.
what you're not understanding about me is the amount that it's possible is negligible.
I don't agree with that. I think it's
Well,
just
you're
harder.
wrong. And this is somebody living in poverty currently in the poorest city in the country telling you hands down that you're wrong. I'm as close to an expert as you're going to get on this. Because in the meantime of what little time that I've had, I've also studied the effects of poverty. I've studied how people move up through poverty. You want to know why I've had to study stuff like that? Because I've wanted to get out of it. Because I'm quote unquote smart enough and talented enough to do that. I've only been told
Okay.
that my entire life.
Okay.
Anytime I go to school, like when I'm going to school now, which by the way is on your dime, thank you very much. I know you hate that, but guess what? That's the only chance I had to go to school because I couldn't afford it. I make really good grades. I get pats on the back for how well I do. So I'm not stupid, going by any measure of imagination. So I was studying a bunch of ways in order to get out of poverty because I don't like living in poverty. I made tons of decisions that I had hoped would have panned out. Luck happened.
Okay.
It seems like it's a lot bigger factor than you give it credit for because you deify your family because you don't want to think about the fact that there were several other people who had the same job as your dad and they went tits up and they've never recovered. And now they live somewhere like where I live.
Okay. And
Made exact same decisions.
not the exact same decisions. Or not necessarily the exact same results. My dad is a great software engineer. He has software that's been running for over 20 years. There's a reason why he was able to get paid the amount that he was getting paid because he was one of the better ones to do it.
Do you honestly think
And
that he
there's
do you honestly think that he is better than anyone who just didn't have the resources to pursue a career further in it?
that
You
has
don't
nothing to do
recognize
with
that
it.
as a possibility?
We're not comparing him to somebody who almost was a software engineer.
Not almost
Comparing
was a
him to
software
someone who
engineer.
is.
Someone who didn't have the resources to pursue that job. Like, they went to school for it. Things went tits up. They ended up having to move to a cheaper place, which had no industry there for software engineering. Which
Again,
means
like I said,
they
my
ended
dad
up.
came from the woods in Alabama.
And
So if we're talking resources,
I'm going to
trajectories,
also
whatever,
guarantee. I'm also going to guarantee that he got a lot of subsidies in order to go to school, which you're welcome. But
that
I
I have no
don't need to
idea.
be thanked for because I know that we need to contribute to society and we need to help people. So if your dad wasn't impoverished growing up, guess what? He had more of a trajectory than anyone does today because there was more of a social system keeping people like him afloat than there is available today. Which is why I say the amount that it's possible to get out of poverty is negligible at best.
I just don't agree with that.
Well, you're wrong.
I don't think I'm wrong.
Well, the problem is you have to actually be able to qualify these things that you say, and you have not done that.
What do you mean qualify?
You have to provide data. You have to provide examples. You're just giving me an opinion and disguising it as fact. And then any fact that I bring to you, you're like, well, that's my opinion, and I disagree with you. You're just disagreeing with the reality because you don't want to admit the truth.
We're getting lost on a lot of things here. Because I'm not disagreeing that it's harder for some people than others to do better in life.
I'm not saying you are.
Okay, then what's the issue?
You don't
Just because
understand
something's much
how
harder,
you don't want to understand that luck has a much bigger role than it does. Because if you admit that your family got lucky, you feel like it takes away something from you. But I got news for you. It takes away nothing from you. It takes away nothing from your dad. It's just society acting as it's supposed to. Some people get lucky. The rest of us get fucked.
and that's a part we're still disagreeing with. I don't think my parents got lucky.
Well, judging by the data, again, that's also the reality.
The data
Yeah,
on my parents?
on society as a whole. People like your parents. Again, we're not talking just about you. This is a societal critique
I know.
based on data coming from me and based on you not even want to admit something that is verifiable. Because you disagree that you're and by the way, the zip code thing, this was something done in the mid 2000s. This was a study done in the mid 2000s. So we can't base it on your family. Again, your dad probably had a lot of subsidies and a lower college bill than there is now,
Yeah, but
and
you
also
don't.
lower medical rates. Also, he likely God, there was a lot of other stuff that he didn't have to pay as much for. He had the benefits of a quote unquote better economy that benefited him more because he had more available to him. Lower
That's
home
true.
ownership. That was the last thing I was going to say. Lower cost of home ownership. Lower cost of living generally at all.
Yeah, that's
So
something that's
using your
affected
dad
every
as
single
an
person.
example, you have to recognize that he got very fucking lucky that he was born in a time when he could do that. And everyone else had that cut away from him and didn't have that chance.
Yeah, but again, you've gone to likely and probably a lot about
You've gone to
what's
likely and
going on.
probably.
You just said he likely did this and he probably did that, when neither of us actually know what happened. Because again, I don't know the entire
Well,
history of what my dad did.
housing costs
He
in the
did
90s and
benefit from a
80s,
better economy back then. I'm not disagreeing with that.
and also a bigger social state.
But even so, that does not change what I'm saying,
It does.
in that decisions are what help you. Because
What does
not everyone was doing
what
great in the
decisions did
90s.
he make
There
to
was
end
still
up?
poverty. There were still homeless people.
What decision did he make to be born in that situation where he could use such a social state to get out of his situation and earn the money that he did?
The decision he made was the career that he chose. He didn't
There are
have to
plenty of people
choose
who
a
make that
booming
decision for
career.
that career and they can't pursue it because they don't have the money. If your dad didn't have whatever benefits that he had available to him, I got news for you. You're in Alabama with him right now, living out of a trailer park, and you don't have a computer to talk on.
I don't even know what the point you just made was.
It all boils down to he got lucky.
And I disagree. I think he was fortunate enough to be in a booming industry. But
Fortunate.
again,
Fortunate.
it's
That's another word for what?
luck. But let me finish my sentence.
Go ahead.
He still made the decision to go into a booming industry.
Okay. And if there was a
That
person
wasn't
who
luck.
if there was a person who made that same decision and didn't have that social state, didn't have the benefit of a lower cost of living, because it's still a booming industry. You know,
Yeah.
hell, now more than ever.
Yeah.
Someone else makes that same decision now, and they can't afford to go to school.
I feel like you were going to finish the sentence.
I feel like I don't need to, because it should be really, really obvious.
Well, again,
Same decision
financial
making.
situation
They
is
made the
something you can
decision.
have control over.
You believe the decision can be made. Wait, hold up. What did you just say?
I just said a financial situation is something you have control over.
Oh, I thought you said something else. I thought you said that you
Oh,
don't have control over it.
no. That's like the opposite of what I'm saying about everything.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, you're 100% wrong on that, but verifiably. Again, data. Speak in data. Don't talk in generalities and like anecdotes. Data.
I'm not talking in generalities.
You are.
When I say people make decisions, and that people can choose,
And yet you can't also
have financial decisions.
you also can't tell me what decision poor people can make to get out of poverty. Not because
that's a
again,
general
not
thing.
because you're not a financial coach or anything like that, because clearly you believe that you made the right decisions. What decisions could somebody else have made? Or were you picked for a job luckily? You got that advantage to you based on luck, and you were able to work that way because you never got sick out of luck. You never had a car accident out of luck. That puts you so far behind that you weren't able to pursue that anymore.
Luck has nothing to do with whether or not I get sick or don't get into car accidents. Sorry if that perplexes you.
It doesn't perplex me because it doesn't make any sense.
What doesn't make any sense about it? I don't ever get sick because, as I said before, I eat healthy, I exercise, and I drink water. That's not luck. You loved that water comment, man.
Why do you think? What choice? What choice did the kids of Flint have to grow up in a city that had lead in its water? Now they're lead poisoning, so their brains are underdeveloped permanently for the rest of their lives. What choice could they have made? What choice could their parents have made?
Well, for one, you could
Just
start with
move.
having a city that runs shit better.
No. Don't do that. Then I'm going to have to get into the fundamental misunderstanding of how much power the city had versus the state that made that decision. Well, it's because you have no understanding of it. Let's go back to, well, even if you actually gave me a win there. Even
What'd I
if
give you a win on?
even if it were true that the city made the decision to switch the water, the kid had no choice and will have there's no decision that they can make for the rest of their life that will get them out of poverty. Because they were born into a situation. They were unfortunate, to use your word. Of fortunate, people are unfortunate too. And that amount of being unfortunate leads them to having a much harder ability to make any sort of choice that could get them anywhere near even being stable.
Much harder is the key word.
Nearly impossible is the actual word, but I know you don't like that. Nearly because, yes, you can win the lottery.
You can win the lottery, but that's not the only thing.
To some people, it is. To a large swath of America, it is.
I don't know what the point is. I mean, seriously. My point is, yeah, life's hard.
Skidadar in my chat said it best.
For some people.
Skidadar in my chat said it best. Life is a lottery.
Yeah, and we were born in America. We got the greatest lottery ever. We're born in America at this time. Greatest lottery ever.
I would have rather been born in Norway or Denmark or Germany, a country that actually takes care of its people and has like more freedom and more happiness than any other country, you know, especially this country. More than this country. Come on, give me a break.
Go for it.
Don't give me this I'm going to suck the cock of America bullshit when we're just about to watch the second housing crisis in 20 years. The second housing crisis that I've had to live through in my adult life. Not as a child and then adult life. Don't give me that. 10 years, excuse me. Not even 20 years, 10 years.
I don't know what your point is right now.
Don't tell me that I'm fortunate to have been born in the US.
You are.
I'm not. There are so many other. With what money?
Figure it out. You're the one that doesn't want to live here.
Figure what out?
How to
Now
make
we're
more
now we're
money.
back to yeah.
We're back to
Okay.
this again.
Okay, yeah. Because you are so insane about this. There is
How am I
no
insane?
decision. Yes, there is no decision that I could just make that makes more money. I cannot will it. This is why I say you believe that I can will it into existence.
I don't believe that. I mean, in a way, I guess you could will it into existence, but I'm not saying you could just,
Do you think that
sit
the
there and
people that live in
meditate.
Flint want to just stay here and have a median income of 17,000 a year?
No, I don't think anybody wants that. I don't think people in third world countries want that either.
What choice can they make to get out of that?
We're back to the same question.
Yes, because you don't have an answer. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of poverty. You have no idea what it's like to grow up in poverty, live in poverty, none of it, especially as is now. You have no understanding of what it's like to be unfortunate. Your parents got fortunate, and that allows you the privilege to make this decision that you just kind of know. Because there was a couple hard times in your dad's life.
Okay. My dad's and many members of my families. And I learned from them. No, I didn't grow up in poverty, but I've witnessed it. Again, like I said, I have family members and I can learn.
You were a bystander to the thing, and you had the ability to make decisions and screw up. And when you screwed up, you had a safety net. A safety net
Okay.
that not a lot of people have. And if people
Okay.
made the same exact decisions of you and did not have that safety net, they would still be in poverty. So it seems like there's a bigger factor there that has fuck all to do with decision making. Do you
You
think
think it's
you're
a big
the only
factor?
one that has made the decisions you've made?
No.
Why do you think that you're the one that got lucky?
I don't think I'm the one that got lucky.
You did, though. You had more available to you in the first
Well,
place.
yeah,
And the
lucky
reason you
enough to
had
be in a middle
more.
situation.
Now it's changed.
What's changed?
You were lucky to have this situation where you could fuck up and you had resources to get out of it.
Yeah, I never
Good
said
for
I was
you.
ever in a situation where I've been completely on my own. I've said
Bingo.
my parents have been good. I never said I was rich. You said I was rich or my parents was rich. They were never rich.
In comparison to my family,
That's relativity.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
Well,
A lot of people, let me tell you something that you're also going to hate. A lot of people that are extremely rich consider themselves not rich.
yeah, I know that. Trust me. I know there are people like my girlfriend's dad. He's
Mm-hmm.
he's been on a ride,
Mm-hmm.
but they are convinced. His wife thinks it's crazy that she has to work and she can only afford a 2020 Honda Civic. It's all relativity.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what
So when I
your
tell
point
you
is.
that in comparison to what I grew up in a middle class, like literally the most middle class family home you could imagine. 2 cars, we struggled sometimes. We were able to send one of our, they were able to send one of my brothers to college. Cool. As middle class as you could honestly imagine, 2.5 kids, all of that.
Mhm.
Okay? If I'm telling you that you were richer than my family, you were rich. You grew up
That's
in an
relativity.
obscene amount of privilege in comparison to where I did.
Yeah, I acknowledge that.
So you're not seeing how that correlates to how you view your fiance's parents.
What?
You're not seeing how that correlates with how you view your girlfriend's parents, girlfriend, fiance, whatever.
I mean, just might as well be. Um, I don't. I don't understand what you are saying. I don't
You
understand.
you understand that it's really ridiculous that her parents think that they're not rich.
Yes,
Do you understand how I can consider it also ridiculous? Because of
I do understand that. That's what I keep saying. It's relativity,
yeah,
which is just a viewpoint.
but there's also factual data to back it up.
Data to back what up? That
If your
I'm
family
rich?
was making more money than my family, guess what? That puts them in the upper class. That's
Upper
rich.
class.
Yes. Yes, they're tax brackets. These are
They're
tax
not in the upper
brackets.
class. I'm telling you, not in the upper class.
Well, you're lying to yourself then.
I'm not lying to myself. This is all just relativity.
Anything to get out of admitting I'm right. You
According
know,
to you, of
you know, are you able to ever admit when you're wrong?
course I am. I've done it several times,
Not in this conversation.
but I haven't been wrong.
Yeah, you have.
About what?
Just about everything.
That's your opinion. I don't think you understand that we have different opinions and viewpoints.
I actually
What
do.
you
I
think is
completely.
facts are really just viewpoints. And
Viewpoints backed up by data.
you have yet to refute how general
Viewpoints
healthcare.
backed up by data. Because we can't even get to a fundamental understanding of how poverty works. Because your base assumption is they can just make decisions and not be poor. They can just move on if they just choose to not be poverty. I just will it into existence and I just worked harder, even though I'm already working myself to death already, for as much money as I am capable of getting in the situation that I live in. We can't agree on that fundamental understanding because you refuse to listen to somebody who's telling you from the position of poverty while studying poverty in the poorest city in the country that he's wrong and it's just an opinion and just make better decisions.
So anyway, what I was going to
We
say,
can't start there because you are stuck on this idea that it's choice when it's not. Fundamentally, factually, you do not choose the situation you grow up in. You do not choose who you're born to. You do not choose what resources you have available to you. You don't choose any of that. And any choice that you can make from there is based on the resources you have available to them. You're the amount that you are capable of failing when you make the wrong decision. Quote unquote wrong decision. You know, the one where you're either lucky or unlucky.
so anyway, you have yet to explain to me how general healthcare is a right. That's the
Because
whole conversation. I don't know.
because it saves people the most amount of money, it increases the life expectancy of the people of the country. But we can't. You just think
That's
that if
not a
people
right.
make
You don't have a right to money or success.
You have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and you can't do that if you're
Yes.
dead.
Okay.
And
And again,
if you died
I've
because
said
it was
before,
related, and if you die if it's because it's related to your poverty, guess what? There's a reason why we have the lowest life expectancy of the modern world. Those other countries
we
have
live
something we
freely.
don't. No. What? Wait, what? What?
What do you mean
We
what?
don't
Because
live free.
live
We
freely.
have the highest incarceration rate in the world.
Yeah,
of
because
all
people
countries.
because people are choosing to commit crime.
They commit crimes because they're in poverty.
No.
Yes. Verifiable again. Data.
Yeah. Yeah, the data says they're in poverty, but poverty doesn't cause them to commit crime. Because if that's the case, then you would be committing crime right now.
Who says I haven't?
How come you're not in jail?
I've gotten lucky. Also, I'm
lucky?
white.
Oh, because you're white.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to be born white. And I was also lucky enough to just not get caught. I've
Good
told
for you.
stories of some of the illegal shit I did as a kid. I lit my friend's
Good
whole
for you.
backyard on fire. It was an accident, but guess what? That would have landed me in
Well,
prison.
an accident, though, wouldn't have landed. I mean, it could have landed you in prison, but there's a big difference between an
Especially if,
accident and arson.
yeah. We were playing around with kerosene in his backyard. Anyways, doesn't matter.
I made napalm
But I got
with my
really
friends
fucking
once.
lucky. You got fucking lucky too.
I didn't get lucky.
You just told me that you made napalm.
Yeah.
That's not even that's not
That's
even
illegal.
just it's not just illegal, it's a war crime.
I know.
Like it's one of the few war crimes that
It would be a war crime if we
that
used
even
it
the
on
US
anybody.
agrees is a war crime.
We just set a bottle on fire, and we didn't get caught because we did it smartly. But even then, I was a kid. As an adult, I haven't committed any crimes. I don't think you've refuted my point at all.
Let me just read a thing really quick.
Is it gonna be on
Shared to me
napalm?
by Gritty. Huh? No, it's not on napalm. It's about the actual topic. Okay, let's see here. Find a which Gritty, which part of this is the most relevant? Okay.
Oh shit.
Official poverty rate in 2020 was 11.4%, up 1% point from 10.5% in 2019. This is the first increase in poverty after 5 consecutive annual declines. 2020, there were 37.2 million people in poverty, approximately 3.3 million more than in 2019. Between 2019 and 2020, the poverty rate increased for non-Hispanic whites and Hispanics. Among non-Hispanic whites, 8.2% were in poverty in 2020, while Hispanics had a poverty rate of 17%. Among the major racial groups examined in this report, blacks had the highest poverty rate, not shocking, 19.5%, but did not experience a significant change from 2019. The poverty rate for Asians, 8.1% in 2020, was not statistically different from 2019. Poverty rates for the people under the age of 18 increased from 14.4% in 2019 to 16.1% in 2020. Poverty rates also increased for people aged 18 to 64 from 9.4% in 2019 to 10.4% in 2020. The poverty rate for people aged 65 and older was 9% in 2020, not statistically different from 2019. Oh, that's pretty relevant right there.
So what,
you know what
poverty went up in 2020?
Do you know what people 65 and up have?
What? What do you mean?
They were born to a better social situation and more social, more of a social safety net to benefit from.
Okay.
They already had their money, and therefore they didn't lose it. Meanwhile, everyone else who was born under this shitty situation, this declining race, this increasing race to the bottom, well. Oh, and here's another fun thing, because I know you want to talk about families. Between 2019 and 2020, poverty rates increased for married couple families and families with a female householder. The poverty rate for married couple families increased from 4% in 2019 to 4.7% in 2020. For families with a female householder, the poverty rate increased from 22.2% to 23.4%. Poverty rate for families with a male householder was 11.4% in 2020, not statistically different from 2019. It's interesting.
Okay. So poverty went up in 2020? Was that basically the gist of all that?
The point is, there's no decision that they could have made that would have changed the situation that they were in. We live in a system. We live in a society. And no amount of individual choice, especially the very little amount of choice, because I got news for you. We ain't for that free.
Yeah, we are.
Sure. Any amount of choice that anyone could have made, even if we discount what happened with the panda. Well, no. Even if we discount the choices that were made in society, politically. I'm sorry, but the policy choices that you're obsessed with saying when we talk about COVID-19, that was still going to have a negative effect on the economy. Because especially in the states that didn't shut down, we didn't ever actually shut down nationally. There were just a couple of states, like North Dakota, had the highest amount of had more deaths from COVID-19 than Korea, the entire country of Korea,
North and south, or just south?
South Korea.
Yeah, I figured we probably don't have the numbers from North Korea.
They didn't shut down at all.
Okay.
Their poverty rate increased.
Okay.
So you can't talk about political factors there. It's related to the virus. What
We
choice
don't know what all the
could it?
factors are.
What decision could anybody have made?
We don't know the factors that led to that.
Actually, we do.
What are they?
Well, a ton of people dying from the virus that spread communicably. That kind of has a negative effect on the economy.
Yeah.
So that's a situation. That's a systemic situation. This is societal. What decision could they have made? Because it was all over the world. It was unavoidable to run into COVID-19, and a lot of the borders were closed down. What decision could impoverished people have made to get themselves out of poverty?
Again, you're asking me a question that is
That you
so
don't have an
open in
answer
general,
for
because I can't tell what people in North Dakota what they could have done to have made more money.
during a pandemic.
Yes, I made more money during the pandemic.
Do you know who did make more money during the pandemic?
Yeah.
The very wealthy.
Yes.
Uh-huh. Do you think it's because they made good choices, or is it because they benefited from a
Because they
situation?
made snarky choices by having everyone stay inside.
The
I didn't mean
billionaires
they didn't
didn't
make
make that
that choice,
decision.
but
Yeah,
they
they
didn't make
wanted
that
everybody
decision.
to stay working, and they could give a fuck less if people died or not.
No, they wanted people to stay inside. They
No, they
wanted to
want
perpetuate this epidemic as much as they can
Amazon.
because they're profiting from it.
Amazon fought to stay as a essential business, even though they're not.
Yeah, everybody fought to be an
So
essential
no, they
business. Papa
didn't go
John's was an
home.
essential business. I didn't
Yeah.
take a day off.
How do you think that? How do you think they made that decision? They did not want people to stay home because
Yeah,
that
'cause they
costs
want their
them
business
money.
to keep going.
Yeah.
And then Amazon wants people to stay home because they make more money that way.
No,
We're getting off topic.
they don't. They don't earn more money by having less workers. They still need to be able to.
You still have not yet told me how general health care is a human right.
And I'm going to tell you again. It's because we can't even get to the point where you understand that poverty is not a choice. It cannot be made. It can't be willed out of.
What does that have to do with human rights?
Because I have to start from a position in explaining the right as to why it's beneficial for people, to show that it's necessary enough to human society to allow people to live, and that there's enough of a barrier in place, and there's enough of a financial barrier in place to where it intrudes on people's ability to live freely.
But I don't, and I disagree. The thing is, I don't think financial barriers are related to your rights. Because something is more difficult. And again, you have a right to live. You have a right to
Not more difficult, nearly impossible.
That's, yeah, nearly. Again, key word.
Negligibly impossible.
Well, I disagree with that negligibly.
Then you're insane.
Insane.
Like, Jesus Christ, man. That's why we can't get to that point. Because you think that people can just make certain decisions that you can't qualify at all. Like, you can't even get close to qualifying. You throw up a bunch of examples, and guess what? Every single one of them has a financial barrier to them.
And again, a financial barrier is external. That has nothing to do with your human
So
rights.
then you're okay
And the
with the.
federal government's purpose is to make sure that your rights are not violated. That's it. I
And
mean, it's
also to
supposed to be it.
determine rights.
No, the government does not determine rights.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
Do you believe that God was the one that made the choice to have freed slaves be able to vote? Because
What?
slavery was in the Bible and defended.
Yeah, I know that.
It sounds like God was pretty pro slavery.
Yeah, and slavery still exists.
Yes, it does in our prison system.
They're not slaves. I had someone try to make that point the other day. Just because the 13th, was it the 13th Amendment? Gosh. Just
The
because
13th Amendment
it is the
literally says
13th
that
Amendment.
slavery can't exist
Just
as
because the
slavery
13th
in
Amendment
prison.
says
Yeah.
that.
Oh, just because it says it doesn't mean it's true. But I believe in the
No.
Constitution.
Are
Oh
you
my
gonna let me
God,
talk?
man.
Are you gonna actually
I'm
let me
trying to
finish my
stop you from
sentences?
making really bad points. Okay, that's what I'm trying to do.
Well, that's not your job. You are not responsible for the words that I say.
Well, the problem is that it wastes time, and I would much rather
It
have our
doesn't waste
time be
time.
valuable.
Look, if you think we're wasting time, then we're wasting time. If you're not
We're
gonna let me
we're
actually
only
articulate my points, then we're wasting time. I was gonna finish my sentence, but you cut me off. You've done that repeatedly this entire conversation.
I'm okay with that.
I'm not.
All right, make your point.
Just because the 13th Amendment says slavery is allowed through imprisonment, that does not mean people in prison are slaves. That's all I was gonna say.
So just because it's legally defined as slavery doesn't mean that it's slavery in your opinion.
No. Just because it says that slavery is allowed through imprisonment, that does not mean people in prison are slaves. And there is a major difference between people in prison today and the slaves that existed hundreds of years ago.
What's that?
What's the difference?
Yeah.
People in prison were not born in prison. People in prison were not captured and sold and put into prison. People in prison
Wait,
commit
that last
crime and
one.
get put there.
That last one.
What, captured?
Uh-huh.
You think getting arrested for a crime is captured?
Yeah. If the law is unjust, sure.
If the law is unjust, sure. I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's plenty of people in the prison system that shouldn't be in there because of stupid laws. I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't change.
So then
That doesn't
that doesn't
refute
make them
my point.
slaves? Yeah, actually it kind of does. And by the way, that's the majority of people in prison.
And still the laws. Again, we're off topic. You have yet to prove to me how healthcare is a human right and how you're entitled to it naturally and how you're
Because
entitled to me paying for it through tax money, through coercion, and federally through legislation, not privately.
Do you believe that wages are coercion?
Wages are coercion?
Mm-hmm. Do you believe that employment? Let's put it that way. Do you believe that paid employment is coercion?
No. Why would I think that?
Because it is.
How so?
Quit working.
Why would I do that?
Do you like working?
Yep.
You love everything about your job. You wouldn't rather be home playing video games?
Of course, I'd rather be home playing video games, but if I sat at home and played video games, how can I expect to actually have anything? Do you think
Exactly.
you're entitled? Do you think you're entitled to water and food if you sit at home and you don't do anything?
I believe you're entitled to water and food, yes.
I don't. If you feel entitled to that, I implore you to go spend a week in the woods and do nothing, and see all the water and food that just shows up at your campsite.
But you're fundamentally misunderstanding that I view this as a society. If I remove myself from a society, yes, I will sit out in forest and die, which is the only way. That by the way is the freedom that you have right now.
What?
With no coercion at all, you can just go out to the woods, sit there and wait to die.
Sure.
That's the only way to avoid coercion in this society. And I'm not talking about taxes, and I'll agree. Yeah, taxes are coercion.
Yeah.
You didn't get me. I already agreed on that.
I didn't think you got
But
that. I mean, I'd imagine.
there's some extent of coercion that's always going to exist in society, and employment is one of them.
I don't think employment's coercion.
Then quit your job.
No,
Why?
because I want to work.
Why do you want to work?
Because it makes my life easier.
Why
Because
does it make your life easier? What's easier about it?
Instead of growing food, raising livestock, retrieving, filtering water, building structures, I can instead just
Which
go
all
do the
that is
same
also
thing
work.
over and over and over and over, and I
Which all that
benefit
is
from
also
everyone
work
else's
and
work.
also costs money, and you need to be making money in order to do that, right?
Yeah, money
Yeah.
is money. Money is what frees us. The fact that I can just bring packages to people's boxes all day and benefit from everyone else's work because of the money that I make. Money is just it's basically just a marker for time. The amount of time and the value of the time.
Again, we'll go back to, because I'm not even going to start on that. We'll go back to, why does it make it easier for you? Not just easier, by the way, but go ahead, answer that.
Why does working make life easier?
Mm-hmm.
Because of the system that we have. I don't know. I don't.
Because you need to maintain having a house over your head. You need to
Yeah.
maintain being able to eat. You need to maintain your fundamental necessities in order to live.
Yes.
And if you do not work, you don't have that.
I agree.
Do you not see how that's coercive?
Basically, you're trying to make the point that life is coercive. Because again,
Society is coercive.
if we go back to the woods situation,
The only way that
would you
you're
say
truly free.
would you say it's coercion to build your own shelter? Would you say it's coercion to go get water and filter it?
I'd say that it's coercion to have to buy those
That's
materials in order to do that.
having to buy them. We're talking about being in the woods. You're not buying anything.
Oh yeah, you don't have
Is the
any. You
coercion to
removed yourself
live?
from society then too. I've already admitted that's the only way you can remove yourself from society and have true freedom.
Yeah, but the thing is we're looking at the coercion differently. If you're out in the woods and you got to go build all this crap yourself, you're still having to work. And my point is that instead, only thing I have to do is
But
bring a
then
box to
you're
somebody's
just
door.
providing it just for yourself. You're providing it just for yourself.
Providing what? Are we talking about the woods or are we talking about in the society?
In the woods, that you're not living in society by that choice. Like I said, that's the only way that you can be truly free. And again, well, not again. I hadn't said this yet. That depends on if you're on private land, because then you can be kicked off of it. You'd have to still be on
Well,
public land.
we're getting too specific. I'm painting a metaphor here. I'm not talking about.
Maybe the metaphor is bad.
The metaphor is that you have to work for something in order to live no matter what. My
Well,
point is that
I
having a
didn't say
job makes
work,
it
did
way
I?
easier.
I didn't say work. I said employment.
Well,
Like
then what?
you're providing this example where I'm literally telling you, yeah, that's the only way that you can be free is if you completely remove yourself from society. And then yeah, of course, then you can do whatever the fuck you want. But guess what? That's going to fucking suck. And chances are you're going to die a lot quicker. We can look at history as
Depends
an
on the
example
person.
of that.
Yeah, but I don't understand how you say it. Like my point is that I'm more free living in the society, working a job, and I don't see it as coercion. My life is way easier than living in the woods because I work a job and I have money and I use my money to get the
Let's
food and water.
let's say something changed at your job and you started to hate it. Started to make things worse as far as like your working condition. You're just like, man, I fucking hate this job.
Mm-hmm.
You just choose not to work. You just choose not to pursue employment, not to make money.
No, I would keep going, and then I would find a better
why
job.
why can't you do that though? Why can't you just stop making money? You're
If I stop working,
you're free to do that.
If you stop working, then you stop benefiting from work.
Okay, and what are the benefits of work?
Shelter, water,
The
clothing,
bare
food.
necessities that you need in order to continue to live.
Mm-hmm.
So if the consequence of not working, not pursuing employment, is a detrimental threat to your life, how is that not coercion?
Because if you're equating having to have a job to coercion, is that what you're doing?
Which that is what it is.
What I'm saying
More
is
so
that
than
if that's
taxes.
the case, then you would have to say that nature is coercive. Because if you go back to my woods scenario, you have to work. You can't just suddenly decide you don't want
We've already
water.
handled that. We've already handled that and why that's a bad example. That's actually
No,
the only way that you can be truly free of employment.
You said
We're
it was a bad
talking about
example.
employment. We're not talking about work as in getting up and doing anything.
What is employment have to? What is
Working
the
for the benefit
differentiating?
of somebody else to receive a smaller amount in perpetuity of the work that you enacted.
Okay. What's wrong with that?
How is that not coercive?
Because you don't have to work for anybody.
You can go out to the woods and die.
No, I'm saying you
sooner.
don't have to be employed.
Yes, you
by
do.
somebody.
You do.
No, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be employed by somebody.
You absolutely do. If you want to live.
No, you don't.
Why do you have to pay taxes?
We have to pay taxes because we're compelled to.
Why are we compelled to?
Ask the
You
federal
could just
government.
not. You could just not.
Yes, and again, that's illegal.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
So what?
What do you mean, so what?
So in the same way that you say you can just not work and just not have food or housing or anything, so what if it's illegal?
I don't
You
understand
see
your
why?
point.
Yeah, I know. That's your point. Christ, man. If you're going to hand wave even being able to have necessities to live, you can hand wave something that's actually far better for you, which is not paying taxes, going to prison, still being provided shelter and food and water.
Okay.
You won't have shelter, food, and water if you do not work, if you do not have employment, if you do
Agreed.
not use labor in exchange for a wage.
Yeah.
So that's actually worse for you than the thing you actually consider coercive.
No, it's not. You're seeing working as coercion.
If you don't work, you get less than if you
Yes.
were to break the law and not pay taxes.
I don't think that's good. But
you believe taxes are coercive.
Uh-huh.
Are the synapses like not quite firing?
They're not quite.
Are you
firing
having
for both of us.
you having a stroke here? I'm feeling like there's something going on that I don't know why these thoughts are not connecting. If you have a situation where you have to do this thing, and if you don't, the result is your death through not being able to access necessities. Mm-hmm. And you have this other thing that you say is coercive because it's illegal, that results in you still having housing, still having food, and still having water. How aren't both coercive? But that's true. That's true. No, that's reality. That's true. Are you telling me that they don't give people food, water, and shelter in prison?
Will you let me speak? I am not saying I disagree with what you're saying. I'm saying I disagree with the system in that sense. I don't think that it's a good thing that somebody who can do nothing, break the law, evade taxes or whatever, still gets provided for with our taxes. And again, I still hold the belief, though, that it's not coercion to work because you have to do something in order to live.
But this isn't talking about doing something in order to live. This is doing something in order to get the materials in order to live. This is why I'm separating the point on work as defined as doing anything to survive from doing, employment, which is trading your labor for wage. Mm-hmm. And you need to trade that labor for a wage in order to have access to the things necessary to continue living. How is that not coercion? How is that not coercion? Way worse.
I think it's the opposite of coercion. The fact that I only put packages on people's doorsteps and I still get a house and food and water every single day is insane.
But that's the bare minimum.
What do you mean it's the bare minimum?
That's the bare minimum of what can be provided to you. That's the bare minimum of what you provide for yourself. That's not amazing. That's an incredibly low bar.
It's amazing because I don't have to go and get the water myself and filter it myself. I don't have to grow the food myself.
Well, that's by your taxes that you feel are coercive, not because of your wage.
And again, like I said, I've got an ideal point and I've got the realistic point. I do have to pay taxes, and I'm okay with some taxes because we do have taxes. We do still need a government in some way, shape, or form. I'm not one of those people that's like, let's completely get rid of taxes.
But you don't see employment as coercive, even though it leads to a worse effect on your life.
No. And again, you don't have to get an employment. You don't have to be employed by somebody in order to live. You can make your own money on your own.
That's still employment. That's self-employment.
Okay.
That's the same thing.
Okay. And I'm not saying employment's bad.
I didn't make a judgment on employment. All I said was it's coercive.
And I disagree.
But then you proceed to explain.
It's as coercive as nature is.
But in nature, you can just go and get the things you need. There's no barrier to it except for what's available to you where you are, what you're willing to walk towards. It's not somebody else telling you you can't get this because you don't have the magic paper.
And again, the magic paper is more freeing than nature because the magic paper allows me to do something that
I can go out to the woods right now, if so long as it's public land, and chop down a tree. Or
yes,
I could go to Home Depot. Which am I more free to do if I have no money? Let's say my bank account's in the negative. It is. But let's say it is. I cannot go into Home Depot and get wood. But I can go out to the woods and chop down a tree and get wood. How am I more free in the thing that blocks me from doing the thing I want to do than just doing the thing myself.
Because in the Home Depot situation, somebody went and got the wood for you and cut it down for you
But that's
and
not
shaped it
freedom.
for you and
How is
did
that?
everything for you. So that the only thing you have to do
But
is give
that's
them a
not
little bit of
freedom.
magic paper
That's not
and you
freedom,
get
though.
all of this work that you didn't do.
That's not freedom, though,
Yes, it is.
because you can't get it
I can.
because you have
Look,
money.
yep, and that's because of the decisions I make. Look, here's the thing. I got to get going. This has gone way longer than I thought. We talked in circles. You never at any point actually refuted my central point, which that healthcare is not a human right. The only thing you've done is talk in circles about poverty and coercion, and I don't think this conversation's actually gone anywhere. But
It's it's
any
been really
closing statements
interesting.
on me? It's been a good conversation. Look,
It's
don't get me
been
wrong. I'm just
interesting.
saying I don't think we actually made any progress on what the actual debate was supposed to be about because we got into a lot of details, which is important. It's necessary to get into all these
Mm-hmm.
details when you're talking about debates. But I don't think we ever got down to the core
Mm-hmm.
principle of it.
Okay, and my closing is it all boils down to you have a fundamental misunderstanding of how society works and what the
Fundamental
definition.
disagreement. I wish you would acknowledge it as a disagreement.
I
I
know
don't
you
think you
wish
understand
that,
we have different
but
points of
words
view.
have meaning.
Yes.
So I believe that words have meaning, and you disagree with the meaning of those words. So, regardless to whether you agree with that or not, a fact in stasis exists as a fact in stasis, whether you disagree with it or not. You can disagree that you're falling out a window, but if you're literally falling out a window, you're still going to smash into the ground and hurt yourself. It does not change the facts on the ground, and the facts on the ground are exactly as I have told them, because I needed to get to a fundamental place where we agreed on what reality is, and we never got there.
Yep.
And that
We have
will always
we
be
have
the right
completely
left
different
divide.
viewpoints. Yeah.
Not a viewpoint. No. Don't classify as that. You guys love to do that. You guys always love to do that.
How's it
This
not a
is not an
viewpoint?
opinion. This is not an opinion. We cannot agree on what reality is because you refuse to acknowledge what reality
Yeah.
is.
No, you're right. We are disagreeing on reality.
And I'm telling you what it is. Therefore, we can't even get to talking
You're
about
telling
what
me
is
what
and
your
isn't a right
reality is.
based on all
Your
the
reality is
data,
not
and
everyone else's reality, though.
it's the vast majority of people's reality.
It's a lot of people's reality.
The vast majority.
It's not everybody's.
It's the vast majority.
Majority.
It's not Elon Musk, sure, but you also think that they're greedy, so fuck them too. I'm not on their side either. Take all their fucking money. Give it to poor
I'll
people.
take it.
They'll use it for better stuff that's more beneficial to society. Anyways, yes, we cannot agree on reality because you refuse to accept it because you see it as an opinion, even though it is factually based on data, not.
No.
That is why we can't have the conversation about what is and isn't a right.
Yeah, we have different ideas on what reality is. And that's as you said, that is the divide in this country. Truly. It's the problem that every single one of us is having to deal with is that we're looking at a statue, except I'm looking at the front of it and you're looking at the back of it, and we're explaining different things to each other.
Except for you're like turned around and facing out to like the coast where there is no statue and going, yeah, that's a really nice statue. And I'm actually looking at the thing going, what the fuck are you doing, man? It's over here. It's literally over here. You can't see it. It's behind you, dude.
Sure.
Do you think that there's a possibility that you have no idea what the reality is?
No.
Okay.
Well, that's all I got.
Okay.
See you later, man.
Good talk. I want to put a bullet in my brain. What do you got for me?
Oh, I'm such an idiot. Oh, I'm such an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah, that stands. That stands. See, that's why I don't do debates. Because I just walk away with a lower opinion of human beings. Man, I just. Capitalism to me.
Hank.
Explain capitalism to me.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Capitalism is owning the means of production, essentially.
That's socialism, buddy.
Hank.
Yeah, that was quite a thing. That was quite a thing. Exactly, Cicero. That's how the debate was the entire time. It was a whole lot of like he wanted to honestly guide it back to talking about theism, which is not a thing that I have any interest talking about. Don't worry, I'm gonna put it up on YouTube. I'm still recording so I can get some of the post game. If anyone wants to hop in, like, especially if you were here for the whole thing, like, help. I don't even want to cover the content I have. So before you say anything, bud, I just had a realization that really hurts me. If he believes that money is freedom and you must work in order to have money, and it's not coercive, does he in a way also believe that work is freedom?
How did he say it though? Oh,
He said
hang on. Captain.
he said money is freedom.
I can put it into the chat at some point. Wasn't it like money will set you free?
Yeah.
Like that like
work is freedom, like, guys.
Red flag.
I don't believe he's a fascist. I didn't get any of that. We didn't even get in any sort of racial thing at all. So, whatever.
Okay, you may not. Let's keep it real here. You may not be a fascist, but the undercurrents of fascist indoctrination actually run all throughout the place within the U.S. and that's because there's that. There's that pipeline. I'm going to apologize for my wheezing. I'm still coming down from this cold.
Oh, you're still sick. Yeah. I understand. I saw that last night.
Yeah, but that undercurrent, because there was like a pipeline of German industrialists into the U.S. and it brought that ideology with them. Now, I'm not saying that they were full on like brown boots, coming into the U.S., but it's the school of thought, right? And I can't remember what
it's fascism without recognizing that it's fascist. I get what you're saying, but I feel like it's a bad road to go down. I just wanted to acknowledge that was the thing that was said and how insanely close to that was.
So sketchy as fuck. And yeah, Praxis, you're right. It was inspired by the US.
Yeah.
But there was, and I can't remember what it was. Was it like the Frankfurt School or something like that, which kind of built that up?
Mm-hmm.
But there was definitely a pipeline. It's just the shit was flowing back and forth.
I mean, he is a conservative. He does believe in the Republican Party. He doesn't vote, so
Yeah,
All
it's
right.
I found it very interesting that he kept going, well, I'm a theist. And to my and I can only say to someone who has to come to that and say things like rights are derived from God. I don't know if he said inspired by God or derived by God or provided by God.
Provided by God.
Provided by God.
That's how
None of
we
that's
started.
relevant. It's
Yeah.
you don't live within a theocracy, and like literally, you've got a nation that's founded upon the notion of a secular society. So
There were certain things that, because I wanna get back to the central topic. There's certain things that I just chose to let go. He originally, when he came in the chat and we talked about doing this, he said that he wanted to discuss theism. But there's no real point in talking to me about theism because I'm not anti-religious. I'm not against religion. I'm against theocracy, but I'm not against religion. Those are two different things. People believing in God is not the same thing as people believing in God taking over the country and running it based on the rules from that God. Gritty's coming in. Hey, Gritty. But yeah, I don't think that there was that would have been interesting at all. It would have been like, seriously, it'd be like, oh well, I believe this. Oh, that's cool. I don't care. I don't care that you believe a thing. Like, I just don't. We disagree. That's an opinion.
exactly.
Religion is an opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can
I
hear you.
you great.
Okay. Just want to be clear because I've never done Discord on my phone.
Oh.
Yeah.
You're slightly muffled,
That
but
guy was. Oh, hold on. That's because I have a mask on. Hold on.
okay, yeah. Well, don't take your mask off. You need it on. That's safety.
I'm outside. I'm
Oh, okay.
outside. I'm like by a lake near my job, sort of.
Okay.
So, that guy was special.
Yeah.
I'm just
He kept saying he kept saying I don't do this thing. Then he would say I do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like the entire time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was rounds of self-contradiction.
Yeah,
But
he was completely inconsistent, even in his initial definition of what a right is. Like, my only point in pointing out like the infant thing is just because, like, dude, you can't honestly have that as a definition because it makes no sense. And then I thought it would be like, oh, okay, well, I'll adjust it to this, and he doubled down on it instead. And I had to move on to the talking about how, because he moved it on to, well, we're all born with tongues to speak. And I was like, no, we're not. Like, people are born not capable of speaking. Deaf people aren't capable of physically speaking as far as like vocal cords and everything. Something was provided, honestly, most of the time through the state and your taxes, to give them a way to provide speech, but they don't inherently speak.
Yeah.
Oh, well, they have opinions, but it doesn't mean anything if they can't express them.
Yep, and those provisions aren't. Let's keep it real.
Yeah.
Like those provisions to provide help and services to people who were born without a particular means. That stuff is not. That's not a provision by law, right?
Yeah.
Or it's not in a Bill of Rights.
Actually, and
Go.
Yeah. No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Keep going.
I was kind of wrapping up at the point. It was just it's not something that's been provided. It's not something that's been laid out in any kind of legal document that says the state shall do the following. At some point, society said we are going to do this. It's like the Postal Service. It just kind of started. I think there is something in your constitution about the Postal Service. Here in Canada, there's nothing like that. We just did it.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, the Postal Service
Yeah, and
predates this
actually,
country.
yeah, and what was really funny to me, and I don't know if either of you know it, but he started the conversation talking about the Bill of Rights a little bit. Like, that's how the conversation started between you both.
The Constitution.
And then, have. Well, but like I don't trust the government or something. He said something about like I don't trust the government or the government doesn't decide that.
God does.
Like, well, not even that. He like it was just funny. Like it struck me. Like I have to honestly go back and watch the whole thing, which I don't have the time to do, frankly.
Yeah.
But he said something about like the government doesn't like say this, and then but he would go back to the Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
Like cognitive dissonance, dude. Like, do you even know what that is?
He said the government doesn't establish rights. Yeah, God does. God establishes rights.
Yeah. Which point? What's the point of a constitution or a Bill of Rights? Like,
yeah. Why do you care about the Constitution if you think that it should just be the 10 Amendments or 10 Commandments? Excuse me.
Yeah. And more importantly, if God gives rights, which God? You live in a secular society and you're a theist. So at some point, if I'm sorry, but as a as a lifelong member of the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, his noodly appendage did declare healthcare is a right of all human beings, and if he's going to oppress my religion with his statements, I'm going to have to take him to some kind of human rights tribunal, I believe.
Well, he did say he made napalm once, so
yeah,
that was a funny aside.
Admission.
Yeah, that was quite. I mean, I admitted that I lit my friend's backyard on fire. Like we've all done illegal things and been lucky enough to not be subject to the law. Luckily, hate that word. We were fortunate. Yeah. Excuse me, fortunate to not be subject to the law on that. Like, and on that part where like then I pinned him down on the thing about greed, and he said that you can't legislate sins, and I'm like, we do all the time. Theft is against the law, and it's also a sin. Thou shalt not steal and all that, and that's that whole part is under God, what is it? Gluttony, I believe, or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I do wish that I knew more about theology, because if I did, there's definitely a lot of stuff in the Bible about taking care of others in your society that I could have easily made, but I would need to be able to quote it verbatim, to argue with somebody who wants to talk about theology. You know what I mean? So,
and see, what's funny to me is like he really only seemed to want to talk about Christian theology.
Oh, of course.
And there is so much more than that. I mean, I'm one to talk because, frankly, religion can get fucked, in my opinion. Just because people just always take it too far and interpret it literally, and it's always very problematic in the way of their interpretations.
Yeah, I'm not going to have that conversation. That's a whole thing.
Yeah, it's not even worth it.
I wish we could find it, but there was an old debate between me and Micro Macro back in the Leon Cyphers days that we had about just that, and it was pretty interesting. It got really heated. Because we were both atheists, and he's much like you. Let's get rid of religion. Which is also funny because he is also a free speech absolutist. Now that I think about it, I should have brought that up. Micro's not a he's lefty. He's a lefty, so he's not like that. It's just we've talked about some stuff, and he told me he's a free speech absolutist regarding comedy and things like that.
Okay, so he's like a Kyle Kolinske character, basically.
Smarter, more consistently left than Kyle Kolinske. I'll put it that way. He's a better dude than Kyle Kolinske. I don't think I'm going to see any Hong retreats in his past.
Yeah, Kyle's a bit of a radical centrist, really.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There are times when
Yeah.
that tweet pops in my head and I just laugh. I will never say it verbatim, but goddamn if it isn't funny in the worst possible way.
Mm-hmm.
Like hungry. Just the fact that it's HOU. Oh, I'm sorry. Anyways, back to the debate.
Kyle hungry.
He's hungry.
So I gotta ask, because I missed the first part. How did it get from being about Medicare for all to healthcare as a right? Because that feels like a jump.
Because when I tried to bring up the financial barrier between people pursuing healthcare and how it could relate to people's deaths and their ability to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, he started saying that, well, you could just make better decisions. And then in my head, I was like, whoa, we can't even begin to talk about this until we have an understanding of how poverty works. There's just no way we can get to, because it's going to be a dead end no matter what. Because I'm going to say, well, this is better for society. This is proven better society. Look at all the countries that did this and blah, blah, blah. And you can say, well, people could just make better decisions. And you just say that over and over and over again, and use that as a brick wall in the conversation. So it's like, no. We need to have a fundamental understanding of how poverty works. And we never got there. Through the weirdest means.
I like. Yeah, and I think part of the problem is, and speaking as someone that's kind of coming with their own identity, like myself, and the way that I grew up, I think part of the problem for him, as I'm sure you guys know, is he can't see past his privilege.
Yeah, and that's where I was trying to get him.
He didn't understand half the shit. Yeah,
that's where I was trying to get him.
and I think
Go ahead.
And I don't know. I think with some people it's gonna be a fucking lost cause, and he's one of those people. But the good news is no one was watching him on his Twitch, so good luck growing your audience. You know.
If he winds up on Prime Kai's, which is incredibly easy to do. Well, he works, so he would have to forego work in order to stay up late and do that. So yeah, he's going to continue to be irrelevant, which, you know, fine, dude. You know, just don't do any anti-trans stuff, please. Like, don't do like race science or anything like that. You know, because then that's connected back to me.
Oh, you know he's got those ideas, right?
God, I don't.
When you said
I don't want to
you were
assume
born
that.
white.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but when you said, you were lucky because you were born white, there was just like this look on his face, like he just scoffed at the entire notion that meant anything. Which
yes, it absolutely did. I live in a majority black city. I think it had a difference.
Yeah.
It means a lot. Like it means so much. Like a weird example that I have is I was one of the 9 to 2 moms. That made a difference on whether or not I was bullied, and I was bullied for having 2 moms.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that shit fucking matters.
It absolutely does.
Like, what you're born as matters.
Because, I mean, they could, during that time that you were growing up, they could have been fired and refused housing. And that makes a fundamental difference in your upbringing. Yeah. Like, I didn't even want to get into the racial divide on poverty, because I was like, I feel like that's a bridge too far, because we can't get into the fundamental understanding that you don't choose, you can't will into existence your ability to leave poverty. And there was one point where I wanted him to make the argument of just move. When I kept bringing up, like, what are the people of Flint to do? And he just kept going back to make better choices. He didn't want to...
I forgot that he said that.
Yeah.
But I think you handled that well because you kept saying what choices, and I think that's the point, is that people who are in certain areas of the world and in under certain class conditions don't have certain choices available to them. That's the whole point.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to pin him down a little bit on that too, but he didn't want to commit to any sort of decision that somebody could make. Because I could use the example, like I tried, because it was there. I tried to load it there and lead him there. I tried to use the example of me being able to go back to school, and he didn't want to stick to that, and was like, well, that's very specific. Well, we kind of need to talk in specifics, because you say that you have this idea of how people specifically can get out of poverty, and at the same time, you don't want to tell people what that is, / you don't know. Because, I'm not a life coach. I'm not a financial advisor. If that's another barrier for people to get out of poverty, I got news for you. There's no decision that they can make, because you still need to be able to afford a financial advisor. They don't just, come free or take coupons.
Right. They're not going to do that shit for free because it's a job.
Yeah.
Why did they need to work?
And that's the thing I wanted to pin him down on, because if I could pin him down on, I made this, I made this decision to go back to school, I could say, but the only reason I was able to do that was because the government made the decision to provide it for me, not because I quote unquote worked harder or anything. I wouldn't have been able to go back to school. I wouldn't be looking at applying to nursing school soon if it weren't for the state passing the God, what is it called? Future for Frontliners bill in Michigan. If my governor didn't sign that, I'm not in school right now. Absolutely not. I'm still trying to pay off the $1,300 I owe the last school. I'm still trying to get good with my student loans from my other schooling, and I'm still not able to pursue schooling now. There's just no fucking way. And the fact that I was only able to do that because of the government providing it for me shows that the decision was always out of my hands, and I couldn't even get him there.
Yeah.
Led a horse to water, didn't drink.
But I think this kind of brings up an important thing. Like, he was kind of trying to keep using this example as his family as the means to reflect his argument. And
yeah. I mean, I kind of let it there, but
yeah, it's not a good way to have, like, if you're having debate, I mean, you're trying to debate the merits of something. That's an anecdote. Like, you got to talk over the data, and it's like, your no disrespect to your family story, it's not data. So what is your data that backs up your opinion?
Yeah. I think I probably should have
provided nothing. He it's that whole, he had that whole loosey-goosey, he had that kind of libertarian framework where it's like, like I expected him to kind of bring up, I don't know how it was going to get there, but I was just waiting for the non-aggression principle. It's like, well, if the government provides healthcare, that's going against the non-aggression principle. You know what I mean?
I just realized what his argument was. Hang on. I gotta find this. His argument for being able to get out of poverty. Let me just do this, okay? Come on. That's the wrong one. God damn it. I have too much shit. Up here. Oh, I'm losing my mind. Where is it? Here we are. so that you guys can check it out. His whole argument for the for how to get out of poverty, because I kept pointing out how impossible it is. It was
Mary?
is this.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
That right there. That was his argument for getting out of poverty. So you're telling me there's a chance.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
I know you couldn't see it, Gritty. I pulled up the Dumb and Dumber thing.
Oh no, I actually could.
Okay.
I don't know how I did it, but I watched while you were watching.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It was. That was the whole thing. He's like, but that you can. It's like, cool.
It's all so funny. Like honestly, I don't know. I mean, yesterday sucked for the Democrats nationally, really. So
Yeah.
I just needed a little bit of like laughter, and I knew that this was gonna be laughter.
On my end, it was all
'Cause,
pain, but I'm glad I could
God.
provide you with some fun.
Well, don't get me wrong, it was pain, but it was like laughter pain.
I'm just.
He was a hot mess, like no doubt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It just reminded me why I stopped doing debates. Because it just makes me lose faith in humanity. To hear somebody with the amount of gusto and confidence declare things that are completely contrary to existing reality and double down on it as, well, it's just my opinion, man. And I'm just supposed to go, okay. Yep, you're right. It's only my opinion that people can't get out of a poverty, and poverty is increasing exponentially year by year in a fundamental race to the bottom. It's only my opinion that's happening, and that if they just made some decisions that were right, and it's not based on luck, they could totally get out of it. That's just an opinion. And I just need to go around Flint and tell everybody, ask them, why haven't you made better decisions? And then when they ask me what decisions they could have made, just tell them, I'm not your life coach or financial advisor, and walk away feeling, just so good for myself and huffing my own farts.
Yeah. I think this is the problem with the current view that people have of debate. Debate isn't really debate anymore. And
I mean, let's be honest. I have discussions. I don't really debate. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to dunk on them. I really don't want to. I want to have a fundamental understanding, but we just, because I mean, I didn't do the Destiny thing at all. I didn't try to just dump, loads of information on them. I tried to just see if we could get a base level of understanding. But no.
Yeah. Yeah, and the problem with with that style, that whole like, here I'm gonna like blurb like a bunch of like quips at you, boo 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 boo. I mean, one, that's just a gish gallop, right? It's not really. I mean, you're not really building a case. What you're doing is you're trying to, overload information, and then
you're being Google.
The person can't. Yeah, you're being Google, which is ridiculous. You actually have to have a full understanding of the facts that you're presenting. And this is the thing. There's so many layers of information that if you're going to just sit there and say, well, my opinion is this, and not really support it with like something, like bring a case study or something like that, then you can at least talk over the facts of the case to support your argument. You're not really doing anything constructive. And that was kind of his thing, as he brought up this, this opinion, and didn't actually say, hey, the basis of my, the basis for my opinion is this. And then looking at some data And then if you're both looking over the data at the same time, you can actually say, you can talk about the merits of that data. Instead, it was like, well, my family. It's like, you can't debate the merits of his family. That's not something you can really do, because who knows? Like, his family story is mired in his perception.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can't possibly argue that.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
think
I
I think it
think
was a
like
mistake going down that road. Go
well,
ahead.
yeah, and I
Sorry.
think part of the problem was like he wasn't really pulling out any data or information, so that was almost the only angle you could go down.
No, I don't agree with that. I
No.
shouldn't. I started out wanting to go down that road just because I had an idea of what he came from, and I mean I was right, but like
Mm-hmm.
and he did at least admit that he grew up privileged, but like uh it it shouldn't have stayed there. I should have moved off it and just like, you know, kind of compartmentalized it and went back to a discussion of poverty rather than sticking on the realization that his family got lucky. I fully recognize that my family got lucky. I'm pretty sure that my
Right.
family would agree that they got lucky. And even then, my dad would say, well, you know, I fucked up a lot, so I didn't get that lucky. But yeah, I did get lucky. Because, like, he's always said that his other brothers, everything they touched would turn to gold, and everything he touched turned to shit. So,
Well, and that was the thing. He kept talking about like this disparity in his family, and it's like, are you talking your immediate family? Like, do you have one brother who's impoverished and the other who isn't? Because that's a story. Like, it's a very different story, because it sounds like someone has been given an advantage and someone's not been given help. Like, it
he
just seems weird that immediate family people wouldn't be helping themselves out.
he he did kind of answer to that, and he related it to drugs and gambling. To which I said, why do people get into drugs and why do people gamble? And he said, because they want to. And I said, no, because of poverty. Like, you're gambling in the hopes to get rich and get out of your situation because you have nothing else. You know, that's why a lot of people get addicted to it, because they want to get ahead, you know? They just want to get ahead. They want to not break even, they want to get ahead. Oh, they're going to get theirs. And with drugs, it's numbing the realities that you live in, because, you know,
Mm-hmm.
not inebriated, it can get very difficult to deal with it on a day-to-day basis. And he didn't even agree that he couldn't even agree that it was because of poverty. He didn't agree that addiction was a disease. All these are verifiable. He couldn't even agree
Mm-hmm.
that imprisonment was slavery.
Yeah, that
While
was something.
also acknowledging that to him, enslavement has to do with being captured. And he's like, well, do you think that there are people who were arrested who were captured? I'm like, absolutely. If the laws were completely unjust and they weren't doing anyone any harm. And he agreed with me. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, yes, then you agree that that's slavery. No. What?
Like the whole cognitive dissonance thing is just he.
No, he's perfectly happy within a paradigm that he's, I don't know, was raised in, grew up in, you know, and it's hard. I expect there's probably a lot in there that's tied to like a very dogmatic religious background, you know, because he said he was theist. So like, I find that really interesting. It's like, so you don't go to church, you don't prescribe to a religion, but you're a theist and you believe that God gives you rights. It's
It
an
was
interesting
strange.
paradigm.
It was
Yeah.
strange. I mean, that part of it made it really unique because I will say he's a different cat from what I've talked to before. You know, he's not lecture fan.
hmm
Um,
Mm.
you know, he's not suspect sushi or God, who else have I fucking talked to? Middle American. If anybody remembers that fucker.
Oh
He's
God,
not
no.
he's not Rob Noor. I've never talked to him, but he's not Rob Noor. He just he has this fundamental viewpoint based entirely on I don't even know. I don't even know how to describe it.
Yeah, it was a little bit strange. There, I don't. There's a point that I'd like to get back to. He kept talking about like his dad in the backwoods of Alabama, and something that was really glossed over was, he talked about his dad made this choice to become a programmer. It's like, okay, so he's in the woods of Alabama and made this choice. So he had means. If he had the
Mm-hmm.
means, he had those decisions available to him.
No,
People,
I didn't gloss over that. I
oh,
didn't.
you didn't? Okay, I
No,
must
no,
have
no.
missed.
I made the point. I made the point that he had more available to him because there was cheaper housing then. College was cheaper, and there was more of a social state that could provide for him to go to school than there is now. I'm like, that's apples and oranges if we're talking about the early '90s or even late '80s. Like, there was so much more available in this country. Even under Reagan, there was so much more available. They didn't like it, but it was there. He admitted that his dad benefited from the .com boom.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
everybody did.
Yeah, so like, God, I don't know. I didn't let that go. No, I was all about bringing up that there was a social state that allowed him to get there too, and I was like, don't you see that as luck? No, and I'm like, but
Yeah.
but he was
Well,
lucky enough to be.
oh, and it was total luck where you landed during the .com boom.
Mm-hmm.
Like total luck.
Oh yeah.
As someone who's in the industry, where you landed within the industry is 100% a factor of luck. Because
Mm-hmm.
The
there
fact
was
that
so
he could
much
fail.
churn. Yeah, and you can still fail.
Yeah,
You
and
could literally join a company which would be bought up and shutting you down within a day. Okay, I'm exaggerating a little bit.
I mean, are you? I'm sure it's happened. I would guarantee it's happened a lot.
Um, I've had friends where it was close to that, where it's like they started and they went through orientation, everything, the first week of work, they were bought up and downsized, and people downsized out of departments in days.
Yeah.
I mean, the .com era was not a good thing. It was terrible for workers, and especially thanks HP and that dirtbag Carly Fiorina, like pushing
Oh
jobs, like
God, yeah.
Oh God, yeah. Wait, wasn't she
pushing.
IBM?
I think
That sounds right.
Lucent. I think I think she worked for Lucent and then HP.
Yeah, it's
You
either
gonna fact check me on this one?
yeah, just cuz I want to be sure. It's either IBM, HP or uh okay. HP acquired Compaq. That's what it was. And then she became the head of HP.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
okay.
she essentially applied the same techniques there, which was like offshore, 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 offshore. Yeah, like every conceivable job offshored, and uh, and that that horrific view of just pushing work offshore had terrible consequences in industries, because what happened is, and I'm not saying that offshore workers are bad, there's lots of talent all over the world, and this is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is when you create a boom in developing countries like that, there's a lot of people who get churned through like grindhouse learning institutions. And we had a lot of that in North America during the .com era. I can talk your ear off about this,
Yeah,
but
I've heard some of
it
it from my brother.
yeah, it was really bad. Like institutions that cropped up overnight said, "We're going to give you this training, and you pay X amount, and you'll be a certified developer." And essentially, what they did was they just churned you out to write a test, and then people would hire these guys who didn't actually have capacity as a programmer. They didn't know how to actually code. They just knew how to write a test. And you get this, we had a lot of that overseas when this offshore push happened, and it just sucked. It just sucked to be be dragged in that industry into that like very volatile job market where you didn't know if your job was going overseas. Like that's luck. Sorry to what was the guy's name? Ungovernable. But
Yeah,
your dad was lucky. Your dad was ridiculously lucky. Because
yeah,
I know plenty of guys in the industry who were not lucky.
who were probably even more talented than him, and that's the scary part.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. It takes a lot of humility to admit that that's that's what happened in a lot of people's lives. Like I've told my family's story before, that the only reason that my dad and his brothers were able to get a job at GM when they came back from Vietnam was literally because my grandpa was a foreman. Do I think that I had that my family benefited from white privilege or some form of privilege? Abso-fucking-lutely we did. Hands down, no debate about it. Do I think my dad worked hard? Yes. It takes nothing away from me or my family to admit that we got lucky. Absolutely nothing. It hurts me in no way. It diminishes nothing that they still did, because he still worked those hours. He still busted his ass, and he still provided for us, the best that he possibly could have. I don't lose anything by admitting he got lucky. I also got to see the people that didn't get lucky.
Yeah.
And I have no idea if those people were more talented than my dad, more deserved of it under this meritocracy that we believe we're in.
Yeah.
And it is scary.
Yeah. I don't mean to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
I gotta go.
Oh,
Back to
okay,
work.
okay.
Well,
All right.
good to talk to
Okay.
you, Grace.
Thanks
I'll
for
be
coming
in
by.
chat. Yeah, good talking to you. All right, bye.
Bye. I'm probably going to go soon anyways, but
Mhm.
yeah, like it was so strange that I couldn't even get him to just go, you know what? Maybe they did. Maybe they got lucky.
I think this is the fundamental problem with living within these economic systems is it unfortunately like leaves you with a bit of like economic guilt. Like, why me? Why do I get to survive? Although some days when I look at the debts that I have, I go, well, maybe I'm not surviving as well as I like to think.
True.
Um,
Yeah.
Why do I get to tread water when other people are failing?
Yeah.
And it leaves, and it's a gross feeling. Like, folks shouldn't have to feel like this. You should have to know that everybody within your society is being provided for, and that you shouldn't have to you shouldn't have to feel bad about not helping someone out because your paycheck is done. Like you spent yourself out in a month.
I brought it up in someone else's chat recently, but it's the competitive nature of capitalism. But we were all told that we're all in competition with each other, and we're shocked that communities fall apart when I have to look at my neighbor as that asshole who's in the way of me achieving. But instead, like, I don't know, I constantly go through a thing where when we're doing okay, I look around and see people doing worse, and I'm just like, why are we doing good? And then when we're doing bad, I look around and I go, why is everybody doing so much better? And I have to keep centering myself to, why are any one of us constantly in this cycle of bullshit where we have to look at each other through this competitive lens where we have to compete with each other? Why do I have to keep up with the Joneses when I can't even keep up with myself? And that should be what makes me happy. And why do I have to fight so hard to not even get to that point? But I'm told to look at that asshole is in my way. I'm sorry, but that asshole's not in my way. There's a society, a system that's in my way. That's not allowing me to join it. Putting up every single barrier it can. And admitting that I got luckier than other people, even though I'm not doing great, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Like, we need to stop looking at each other as competition and just be a society.
Yeah.
His example of the woods that he kept bringing up, and I kept trying to make him realize that that's the only way you're actually free. You know, like if you're out in the woods, you need some wood for your house, you knock down a tree. You know, you build a tool, you chop it down. Yeah, it takes a long fucking time, but you do it. You have to work. You're working literally to just benefit you and yourself. Nothing else. You're not in society anymore. But in society, you need some wood. You go to Home Depot or something, and you have to have, you know, the magic paper to hand to them in order to get it. And if you don't have it, get fucked. Which one is more free? If you care about freedom. But also, which one provides the longer life expectancy? The one that has a social safety net.
Mm-hmm.
And we could not get to that point at any point. And I'm so bad. I guess I'm disappointed because it's not the conversation I wanted to have. I wanted to sit at just Medicare for all. But if we can't agree on what keeps people in poverty, and I know that there's conservatives that agree that it's a trap, and that no, there's no amount of work you can do to get out of it. You know, they'll blame it on crony capitalism or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, let's get there. If we can get to, oh yeah, but that's because of crony capitalism, blah, 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 that bullshit. Okay, then we can talk about Medicare for all and its benefits. But it was, rights are provided by God. Poor people just need to make better decisions. And I will not qualify any of this. I will not provide examples. I will not tell you in any way, shape, or form what those decisions could be, because I don't want to admit either I don't know what they are or that I could be wrong.
Yes. Radical Maniac said right there, all capitalism is crony.
Oh yeah,
That's
100%.
That's it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. We couldn't even get there though. Oh yeah, we'd agree that the government is corrupt, and I was like, oh okay, here it comes. Nope. We moved back to, but if we made better decisions, like, if you believe that the government both can have this big effect on people, you can't also believe that it can have no effect on people.
Yep. Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It just
Being a capitalist it's a club. right?
And he ain't in it.
He ain't in it. He wants to think he's in it, but it's
Oh,
that thing. It's that allure of, oh, I have the opportunity. I have that chance.
did you
And
hear that part?
which one? I was
Um,
like in and out a lot.
we were talking about capitalism, and I brought up to him, I was like, I asked him to define capitalism, and if you heard it, he said owning the means of production.
Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah, but like after that, he kind of talked about, I gave him the definition, capital, people who own capital owning the means of production, and like I tried to get him to realize that he's not a capitalist. I was like, what capital do you own? He's like, none. I was like, then you're not a capitalist. You just believe in it. You're a fanboy of it. Which, I mean, I guess in the same way, any socialist or communist is the same way, but that's because we can't allow it to exist in society. But this does exist in society, and there's just no fucking way anyone's going to get to that point if you're, even middle class these days. But like, God, it wasn't the conversation I wanted to have. Oh, man.
No, but
I'm
I don't know.
disappointed.
I thought you handled it pretty well. I mean, the only thing that I would say is like, you can't let folks just interject their anecdotes as data. It never goes well. You can't argue an anecdote. It doesn't work. You can only take a look at data.
Yeah.
That's all you have, because at the end of the day, like, you're both working with opinions.
Yeah. I should have moved it back to something broader. But like I thought I could use my experience, because like I sit, like, even in the position that I'm in, I sit in the middle of like most people who are struggling in this country. I sit in the middle of that. Like, I'm not dirt poor or anything. We make okay money. We make more than the median of this state, of this city. Like 2 to 3 times more. But we have a lot of debts and shit like that. And we're barely scraping by with that. And the fact that that's the case, I wanted to get him to see that I'm in the middle. I can speak for the majority. I'm not just speaking for myself, and I'm using data to back that up. Can we get to the data? And he just like, no, it's opinion. I just disagree. But you're that's why the statue example was pretty funny.
Oh, that statue example is terrible. That's not, your description of the backside of a statue is not a fact. Like, what you're talking about is perspectives. You're not talking about facts. You both have facts.
We both agree the statue is there, but you're not actually looking at it.
Yeah, you're arguing over the what he's trying to say is, okay, I have observed certain properties of this thing, and I'm claiming that you're observing certain properties of these things, and somehow there's a universal truth in there. That's silly. It really is. But yeah. Anyways, I do gotta go. I thought you handled it pretty well otherwise.
Okay.
But
I'm glad. You're right, though. I'm going to remember that. And if I ever bring myself to torture myself, get into it again, I'll keep that in mind.
We'll save it for a Freem's food debate panel.
Yeah. I won't ask people about their parents when I'm talking to them about fucking pineapple on pizza or something.
Exactly. All right. Talk to you later, man.
All right, later. All right. Oh, man. If I could sum up the debate with a clip, it'd be this.
Wait a minute. This isn't my world. Disappointed!
I'm absolutely disappointed. I was in the wrong world. We slipped into a land. Pineapple belongs on pizza, and if you disagree, you're fucking heathen. Absolutely. Pineapple on pizza is delicious. If you don't like salty and sweet, get the fuck out. We got zapped to a land that I kind of wish existed. I wish that world that conservatives believed existed. I wish that it was just your work that meant you achieved. And I tried so hard. The Jeff Bezos and the poorest person in Flint. I tried that, but he said it was too much of a disparity. But if you recognize it as too much of a disparity, you recognize how impossible it is. And you don't even, it's not even like getting to not just Jeff Bezos, getting to being like stable is such a huge fucking barrier right now because we've cut away at every advantage that his family had, that my family had. My dad had the choice to go to college. He wanted to be a cop, which, thank God, things would have turned out differently. There'd be a lot more fighting right now at Thanksgiving, if you know what I mean. Like he chose to work at GM the rest of his life. He had the GI Bill to work with. Could have totally used it. While he was doing it, he could have benefited from low housing prices. He could have benefited from food stamps or any sort of provisions from student loans that were available at the time that didn't just cover school, but also covered school expenses like food. And it's just, and I recognize that it's impossible. I recognize that the world he wants is completely fictional and makes no sense on its head. But there's kind of an allure of that fantasy of just, well, if you work hard. Which is why so many people believe in it and never question it. And when you pin them down in something where they should be questioning it, they go, no. What do you mean no? Argue against the point. Hey, it's Mark and Eli. I hope you're doing well. Hope you liked the video. If you liked it, why don't you like, comment, and subscribe? My child may stop picking on me.